Chapter 1964, Spirit Consciousness Imprint. Chapter 1964, Spirit Consciousness Imprint. Not far away from Prince Yuanzuo's carriage, a group of people stood. There were more than 100 of them and they were drenched in blood. They were the black immortals of the lower worlds who entered the 10 Absolute Hell earlier on. Tang Zi was among them. At that moment, Tang Zi was expressionless as she looked at Su Zimo and shook her head gently. That action was so subtle that it was almost imperceptible. However, Su Zimo knew in his heart that given Tang Zi's character, she would not reveal such unnecessary actions unless there was no choice. It was more like a reminder. Tang Zi could tell that he wanted to escape and was warning him. Su Zimo was expressionless and did not act rashly. He cupped his fists in the direction of Prince Yuanzuo and said, "I'm Su Zimo. May I know what you mean by that? I've already said that I'll choose 100 people on the hunting ranking to be my followers after this hunting meet." Prince Yuanzuo flicked his fingernails and let out a faint sound of metal clashing. Su Zimo's expression was calm. "I don't seem to be on the hunting ranking." "That's right." Prince Yuanzuo laughed. "However, I've noticed you long ago. The dozens of grade 9 black immortals attacking you earlier on was actually a test for you. If you won them, you would have had a chance to be the last among this 100. Su Zimo's gaze swept past Tang Zi's side and he counted in his heart. There were 99 cultivators there and there were exactly 100 including him. Of course, if you had lost, any of the dozens of black immortals who killed you would have been the last lucky person. Prince Yuanzuo continued with a smile. He did not care about the lives of the black immortals of the lower worlds at all, including Su Zimo. Although he paid attention to Su Zimo, he would definitely not step in if Su Zimo was truly defeated and killed. "I'm flattered that you think highly of me, Your Highness." Su Zimo replied indifferently. Prince Yuanzuo continued, "Congratulations on passing the second test." Su Zimo frowned slightly in confusion. "The second test?" Prince Yuanzuo said coldly, "You were very honest and did not choose to escape earlier on. If you had, you would have been a corpse by now." Su Zimo was silent but was still in slight disbelief internally. If he released his extreme speed divine power, he should have a chance to escape. Right then, Prince Yuanzuo stood up slowly and looked at Tang Zi and the others who were not far away, shouting, "All of you listen up. Apart from talent and methods that surpass others, my followers have to be absolutely loyal and obedient. If any of you dare to betray me, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death." There was a hint of ruthlessness in the tone of Prince Yuanzuo that made one shudder. "Don't worry, Your Highness." Li Tian was the first to stand out and shout, "It's my honor to have the chance to follow Your Highness. Not only would I not betray you if I discover anyone who's disloyal, I'll be the first to step in and clean up the traitors for you, Your Highness." With that said, Li Tian surveyed his surroundings with a ferocious gaze. "Very good." Prince Yuanzuo nodded in satisfaction. He flipped his palm and took out the pitch-black hunting ranking, unfolding it slowly. There were 100 black immortals written on the hunting ranking. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. He could even see his name on the hunting ranking. Prince Yuanzuo said smugly, "The hunting badge originates from the hunting ranking. When you engrave your spirit consciousness imprint on the hunting badge, it will be displayed on the hunting ranking at the same time. With your spirit consciousness imprints, I can sense you no matter where you go with the help of the hunting ranking." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. It was only now that he understood Tang Zi's warning. This hunting ranking was the true threat. If he released his extreme speed divine power, even if he could escape from this place, it would be difficult for him to escape from the detection of Prince Yuanzuo with his spirit consciousness imprint on the hunting ranking. Therefore he would be hunted continuously. No matter where he was or where he was hidden, it was difficult for him to escape the detection of Prince Yuanzuo. At that time he would indeed be doomed. Back when Su Zimo left his spirit consciousness imprint on the hunting badge, he was already hesitant. However, he had no choice given the circumstances. To think that the spirit consciousness imprint would become a sharp sword that hovered above his head and could slash down at any moment. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and gave up on the thought of escaping for the time being. He wanted to see what Prince Yuanzuo was plotting by spending so much effort to choose 100 black immortals who were absolutely loyal to him. Time to head back. Prince Yuanzuo waved his hand and returned to the carriage. Immediately women came forward. Some of them massaged his shoulders and some of them hammered his legs gently to his satisfaction. Su Zimo arrived among the 100 people as well. They were on a small immortal ship that had prepared new clothes for them as well. There were many immortal fruits, wine and even healing elixirs. Li Tian and the others were covered in injuries after the battle in the 10 Absolute Hell. At that moment they needed those items and dispersed quickly. A few people stood on the deck of the immortal ship. Although Tang Zi killed many people in the 10 Absolute Hell, she looked refreshing and did not have any bloodstains. Given her character, there was no way she would get together with others to drink and have fun. Tang Zi stood on the deck and looked at the sky ahead with a calm expression, deep in thought. Just as Su Zimo was about to advance, Tang Zi's voice sounded in his consciousness. "Don't come over." Tang Zi's back was facing Su Zimo and she did not turn back, merely sending a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. "Why?" Su Zimo's activated his spirit consciousness and asked. Tang Zi said, "You had better pretend not to know me lest you get into trouble." After a brief pause she continued, "Also, I've just returned you a favor. I still owe you one." Su Zimo shrugged his shoulders gently. The reason why he helped Tang Zi was mainly because of the Thunder Emperor. He did not care or expect her to return any favors. However, Tang Zi took this matter seriously and calculated it extremely clearly, as though she was unwilling to owe anyone anything. "What are you doing?" Su Zimo sent a voice transmission and asked. Tang Zi remained silent, as though she did not want to speak to Su Zimo anymore. However, Su Zimo did not give up and continued asking, "When Prince Yuan's were retreated, I noticed that you followed him secretly. It's none of your business. You'd better not ask further." After a long silence, Tang Zi finally spoke with a cold tone. Su Zimo smiled. Was she trying to assassinate the prince? Su Zimo could vaguely guess that Tang Zi's target was most likely Prince Yuanzhua. However, he knew better than anyone that there was no chance to get close to Prince Yuanzhua, let alone assassinate him. Notwithstanding the fact that the cultivation of Prince Yuanzhua was already higher than Tang Zi, the 3,000 Earth Immortal beauties beside Prince Yuanzhua alone were enough to give one a headache. Chapter 1965 Emperor's Tomb. Chapter 1965 Emperor's Tomb. For assassins, patience was the most important factor. If there was no suitable opportunity, Tang Zi would rather wait than attack rashly. It was especially so for experts like Prince Yuanzhua, who was a major cultivation realm above her. If she failed, she would definitely die without a chance to escape. If there was no chance, she could wait for a year, 10 years or even hundreds of years. She only had 2 goals for coming here. One of the goals was the Thunder Emperor. Although she possessed the true dragon anti-water bead, she knew that even if she could clear the 10 Absolute Formation, she could not save the Thunder Emperor. In her heart, it was enough if she could just take a mere look at the Thunder Emperor. After failing to clear the formation, she thought that she would never have the chance to meet the Thunder Emperor again. To think that the situation later on would be completely beyond her imagination. Not only did she see the Thunder Emperor with her own eyes, he even broke free and killed 10 perfected immortal experts domineeringly before leaving in a carefree manner. At that moment, she was expressionless, but there was an indescribable joy in her heart. Now that the Thunder Emperor was free, she was only left with a second goal. Prince Yuanzhua. Of course, those were her inner thoughts and secrets. Even if she owed Su Zimo a favor, she could not tell him about it. What's the true purpose of the hunting meet held by Prince Yuanzhua this time round? Right then, Su Zimo asked again. Tang Zi sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness and said indifferently, "Didn't he say? He wanted to choose 100 absolutely loyal followers and give us a chance to change our fates." Fu. Su Zimo chuckled and asked, "Would you believe such nonsense?" "Why not?" Tang Zi asked as well. Su Zimo said, "Given his status, there's no need for him to go through so much trouble if he wants 100 absolutely loyal followers. As long as he waves his hand, disciples of the major sects and descendants of aristocratic families will flock to him. We won't even have a chance. Furthermore, the hunting meet is a game for the exalted immortals to begin with. They control the fates of all living beings in the lower worlds and take joy in it. Why would Prince Yuanzhua choose 100 people out of goodwill to give these people from the lower worlds a chance to change their fates? That's ironic to begin with. It's extremely laughable." Tang Zi harumphed softly. "Humph, seems like you're not stupid and can understand." Su Zimo was slightly stunned. That was an extremely rare hint of emotion in a statement from Tang Zi. Stunned for a moment, Su Zimo could not tell if Tang Zi was praising or mocking him. The logic behind it is extremely simple. Tang Zi returned to normal before long and said indifferently, "Unfortunately, apart from you and me, no one else in the 100 people can understand." Su Zimo was silent for a moment before saying, "Perhaps it's not that they don't understand but that they don't want to." Although it was a little ambiguous, Tang Zi fell into deep thought. Reality was a little cruel. Therefore, everyone would avoid it instinctively and would rather advance with a sliver of hope. "Do you know about the Emperor's tomb?" After a while, Tang Zi asked with a voice transmission. "The Emperor's tomb?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. "I don't know." For some reason the name sounded sinister. Tang Zi said, "The Emperor's tomb was originally a shattered world. It floated everywhere in the void currents of the upper world and its location was uncertain. Legend has it that an immortal emperor was buried inside, that's why it's called the Emperor's tomb." Su Zimo was shocked. The tomb of an immortal emperor. There are many legends about the Emperor's tomb. Some say that there are countless rare treasures, cultivation techniques and secret skills. Others say that there's a shocking secret hidden in the Emperor's tomb. Tang Zi said, "Recently the Emperor's tomb appeared in the void of Divine Firmament mainland. I'm guessing that the hunting meat of Prince Yuanzhou might have something to do with this Emperor's tomb." Su Zimo said deeply, "He wants us to enter the Emperor's tomb?" "Probably." Tang Zi replied. "A tomb that might contain an immortal emperor? Given our cultivation we can enter it at will?" Su Zimo could not believe it. Logically speaking, even Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals were not qualified to explore such a tomb, let alone them. If this was truly an emperor's tomb, it would be filled with treasures collected by the immortal emperor, it would not be in their place to head there. Tang Zi said, "This emperor's tomb is a little special. It's said that the immortal emperor buried inside died under an extremely powerful curse." Curse. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. In terms of curse techniques, the witch race was the strongest. Back in Tianhuang mainland, experts of the witch race of the upper world even descended to kill all living beings. Thankfully, Dai Yu intervened and resolved that calamity. If the rumors were true, the curse technique that could kill an immortal emperor must have been done by an expert of the witch race. Tang Zi continued, "After the immortal emperor died, the power of the curse in his body did not disappear. Instead, it spread in every corner of the tomb and lasted till now." "How long has this immortal emperor been dead for?" Suddenly Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi said, "More than 10 million years." Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The curse in the emperor's tomb was way too terrifying and did not dissipate even after millions of years. Even an immortal emperor can't withstand the power of that curse. "Wouldn't the 100 of us be courting death if we entered?" Su Zimo sneered. "No." Tang Zi said, "For millions of years, many people have entered the emperor's tomb to explore its secrets. The power of the curse inside is a little strange. The higher the cultivation realm of the cultivator, the greater the impact on them." In other words, such a curse is the most harmful to experts like immortal emperors? Su Zimo asked. "That's right." Tang Zi said, "When the emperor's tomb first appeared, an emperor entered and was inevitably cursed as well. He died not long after he came out. Grotto Heaven realm experts were kings. Above the Grotto Heaven realm was the Emperor realm. The most common title for an Emperor realm expert was an emperor. Of course, in the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, most emperors were called immortal emperors such as the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor. In the Great Wilderness most of them were called demon emperors. Above emperors was the Great Emperor that Heavenly Wolf mentioned. Su Zimo was even more shocked. Such a curse could even kill other Emperor realm experts after lasting for millions of years. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the person who laid that curse was. After that emperor died, no other emperor dared to attempt to enter. Tang Zi continued, "For millions of years, more than 20 king realm experts have died because of the curse upon entering the emperor's tomb. The number of perfected immortals and heaven immortals that died within is even more unimaginable." Chapter 1966, Arriving at Green Cloud City. Chapter 1966, Arriving at Green Cloud City. Tang Zi said, "It's precisely because of the terrifying curse of the Emperor's tomb that almost no perfected immortal or kings have attempted to enter the tomb in recent years. The higher the cultivation realm, the greater the impact of the curse." Su Zimo said deeply, "In other words, if a black immortal enters the Emperor's tomb, they will suffer the least damage from the curse." "Indeed." Tang Zi said, however, even if the damage caused by the curse is small, it doesn't mean that there isn't any. Every living being that enters the Emperor's tomb, no matter their race, will be tainted by the curse and no one can avoid it. Of course, that curse is not a fatal threat to black immortals. Su Zimo could tell what Tang Zi was implying and asked, what other effects will there be if there's no fatal threat? It's uncertain. Tang Zi said, if you can't remove the curse in your body, it'll be difficult for you to break through to the Earth Immortal realm for the rest of your life. There's a high chance that your lifespan will deteriorate and various conditions will happen to your body. Su Zimo gradually understood. It was no wonder why Prince Yuanzhou did not look for disciples of other sects or aristocratic families. That was because no sect or aristocratic family would send their personal disciples and descendants into the Emperor's tomb. If the curse could not be removed, it would affect a cultivator's life. There was a high chance that a paragon of a generation would die and fade into the masses. However, among the cultivators that ascended from the lower worlds, Prince Yuanzhou could casually choose 100 people for him to command and enter the Emperor's tomb. These cultivators of the lower worlds even had to be grateful to Prince Yuanzhou. Tang Zi said, once experts like heaven immortals and perfected immortals enter the Emperor's tomb, they will be cursed and won't be able to return. Although we'll also be cursed upon entering the Emperor's tomb, we will be the least affected. Within, we can move freely or even fight. As long as we don't stay in the Emperor's tomb for too long, we can definitely return alive. Su Zimo asked, why does Prince Yuanzhou want us to enter the Emperor's tomb? I don't know about that. Tang Zi shook her head gently. Su Zimo fell into deep thought. According to Tang Zi, an immortal emperor was once buried in the Emperor's tomb. Notwithstanding the rare treasures and secret skills collected by the immortal emperor in his lifetime, even the perfected immortals and kings who died within had countless treasures. There was a high chance that Prince Yuanzhou wanted them to enter the Emperor's tomb to search for treasures or inheritances. However, no matter what, the Emperor's tomb was definitely a dangerous place. It was not only the strange curse. Now that the Emperor's tomb had descended on divine firmament mainland, apart from them, there must be other exalted immortal experts who controlled black immortals to enter the Emperor's tomb to search for opportunities for them. Notwithstanding the other immortal regions, there were 3 immortal kingdoms and countless sects in the divine firmament immortal domain alone. If they encountered other parties, a fight was inevitable. That was also the reason why Prince Yuanzhou spent so much effort to select 100 grade 9 black immortals who could fight well and were strong. Unless necessary, Su Zimo would not take the risk even after knowing about a secret like the Emperor's tomb. But now he had no choice given the circumstances. The security on the immortal ship was not strict. However, even if he could escape, his spirit consciousness imprint was still on the hunting ranking. As long as Prince Yuanzhou willed, he could be found at any moment. That was a huge threat. It was as though Prince Yuanzhou was wielding a sharp sword that was hanging on his neck and could slash down at any moment. He had to think of a way to resolve this matter to prevent future troubles. As Su Zimo pondered, his gaze instinctively landed on Tang Zi. If Tang Zi's target was truly Prince Yuanzhou, the two of them could join forces. However, even if the two of them joined forces, it would be difficult for them to deal with Prince Yuanzhou. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness could only vaguely sense that Prince Yuanzhou was an earth immortal and could not clearly detect his level. Furthermore, Prince Yuanzhou had a noble status and the bloodline of King Jin flowed through his body. He had interacted with top-tier experts since he was young and no one knew what trump cards he had. Moreover, Tang Zi was prideful and operated alone. She might not join forces with him. What are you thinking about staring at me for so long? Suddenly, Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Her tone was unfriendly with a hint of anger. Su Zimo rubbed his chin and stared at her back for a long time. She thought that Su Zimo had some evil thoughts and could not help but feel frustrated. It's fine. Retracting his gaze, Su Zimo replied casually and suppressed the matter for the time being. When Tang Zi saw that, she thought that Su Zimo was feeling guilty and said coldly, "Indeed, I owe you a favor. However, let me warn you not to harbor any nonsensical thoughts." Su Zimo was confused and did not know what was wrong with this woman. Instinctively he asked, "What nonsensical thoughts?" "You." Tang Zi was speechless. Gritting her teeth, she decided not to say anything more. The immortal ship carried everyone at an extremely fast speed and arrived at Mufeng City, which was closest to Absolute Thunder City, in less than 3 days. Thereafter, everyone entered Mufeng City and made use of its teleportation formation to descend upon the central city of Green Cloud County, Green Cloud City. There were a total of 16 counties in the territory of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, and each county had a central city. Typically, the princes and county governors would watch over the 16 central cities. The moment everyone arrived in Green Cloud City, they could sense that the atmosphere in the city was clearly not right and was extremely depressing. The city was heavily guarded. There were guards patrolling the city walls at all times. The cultivators in the city were flustered and averted their gazes in fear. Traces of execution guards could be seen everywhere in the ancient city. The impact of the Thunder Emperor's escape was gradually showing. As long as the Thunder Emperor was not captured, many people in the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom would not be able to eat or sleep in peace as time passed. Of course, no matter how guarded the ancient city was, no one dared to stop the carriage of Prince Yuanzhua. Su Zimo and the others rode on the immortal ship and followed the carriage of Prince Yuanzhua. The journey was almost smooth and they arrived at the residence of the prince. Before the group of them had a chance to rest, a maidservant brought them to a hall. The hall was grand and resplendent with jewels and gems. It was unimaginably luxurious everywhere. Everyone entered the hall and looked around with shocked expressions, attracting exclamations. Su Zimo and Tang Zi were extremely calm. It was Tang Zi's nature. However, for Su Zimo he was unimpressed. In terms of shock, the human emperor's palace that appeared in Tianhuang mainland was enough to beat this palace instantly. Before long, Prince Yuanzhua appeared and sat on the highest throne in the hall, looking down at Su Zimo and the others. The crowd quietened down before long. If you want to follow me and stay by my side, you have to perform well. Prince Yuanzhua said slowly, there's an opportunity as such right now. If any of you can contribute greatly, I'll make him my personal guard. Pausing for a moment, he gave an evil chuckle. That person can even choose any of the beauties around me to be his Dao companion. Chapter 1967, Entering the Emperor's Tomb. Chapter 1967, Entering the Emperor's Tomb. The personal guard of Prince Yuanzhua. Among the 100 people beneath the main hall, many cultivators had fervent gazes. This was equivalent to a leap to the heavens and they would be completely free from their status as people of the lower worlds. From then on, no one in the upper world would dare look down on them. Although the beauties around Prince Yuanzhua were maidservants in name, all of them were at the Earth Essence realm and their cultivation realms were higher than theirs. Furthermore, those that could be fancied by Prince Yuanzhua were all peerless beauties. It would definitely be a rare blessing to have them as Dao companions. Hee hee. Li Tian laughed. Your Highness, feel free to tell us what you want us to do. I'll definitely not disappoint you. All right. Prince Yuanzhua was very satisfied and said in a deep voice, there are various ruins and secret grounds in the upper world. Right now, a secret ground has appeared in the Divine Firmament mainland. Due to the uniqueness of this secret ground, those with high cultivation realms will be restricted instead. Black immortals won't be affected much when they enter. At that point, Su Zimo sneered internally. It was clear that Prince Yuanzhua was hiding the most critical piece of information. According to Tang Zi, any living being that entered the Emperor's tomb would be cursed and no one would be spared. Black immortals were merely affected less and could move freely within. Su Zimo observed for a moment. Among the 100 people in the hall, apart from him and Tang Zi, everyone else had calm expressions. It was clear that they did not know anything about the Emperor's tomb and did not feel threatened. To be precise, it was not because these people knew too little but because Tang Zi knew too much. Be it the Thunder Emperor or the matter of the Emperor's tomb, those were extremely secretive matters. However, Tang Zi knew everything. Su Zimo was curious about Tang Zi's identity as well. This woman definitely had a powerful expert or faction backing her. Prince Yuanzhua continued, there are countless rare treasures, divine powers and secret skills buried in this secret ground. These are also great opportunities for you guys. Thank you, Your Highness. Many cultivators bowed hurriedly with delighted expressions. Prince Yuanzhua said, I can promise you that I won't lay my hands on any treasures or inheritances you obtain inside. However, I want something from this secret ground. No matter what method you guys use, you must get it back. Here it comes. Su Zimo thought to himself. This was the true motive of Prince Yuanzhua. Please speak, Your Highness. Everyone asked. It's a Jade Talisman. Prince Yuanzhua said slowly, I don't have any clues about this Jade Talisman. However, I'm certain that it's in that secret ground. Li Tian shouted, "Don't worry, Your Highness. It's just a Jade Talisman. I'll definitely find it for you after exploring every single corner of the secret ground." Prince Yuanzhua nodded slightly and continued, "In addition, you guys have to be careful when you enter the secret ground. That's because apart from you guys, there will be black immortals of other immortal kingdoms and sects searching for this Jade Talisman inside. Under such circumstances, it would be fine if they did not manage to find the Jade Talisman. However, if they did, it would definitely attract the killing intent of various factions. I'll have 2 old servants lead you guys into the secret ground this time round." Prince Yuanzhua waved his hand and 2 old men stood out behind him. One was fat and the other was skinny. They bowed to Prince Yuanzhua. "We will definitely do our best and not let you down, Your Highness." Su Zimo's gaze lingered on the 2 old men. The 2 old men were also grade 9 black immortals. However, the auras released by the 2 of them seemed special. "Your Highness, when are we entering the secret ground?" someone asked. "We'll have to wait a little longer." Prince Yuanzhua said, "Right now that secret ground has just descended on Divine Firmament mainland not long ago. Once the barrier of the secret ground is weak, I'll send you guys in." He waved his sleeves gently and a series of lights shone in the hall. On the ground not far away from everyone, a gigantic teleportation formation appeared. The formation patterns were mysterious and complicated, shimmering with a bright divine light. Su Zimo glanced at Tang Zi. The latter stood in the crowd expressionlessly and motionlessly. As he had expected, it was almost impossible to assassinate Prince Yuanzhua. If Tang Zi wanted to assassinate Prince Yuanzhua, the only possibility was to close in and make use of the sharpness of the dark daggers to complete the assassination. However, Tang Zi did not even have the chance to get close to Prince Yuanzhua. If she could not make her move now, she could only follow everyone into the Emperor's tomb. However, they would definitely be cursed the moment they entered the Emperor's tomb. His green lotus true body was immune to poison and was also extremely resistant to curses. However, the green lotus true body had yet to grow to its peak. Right now he was only a grade 9 green lotus true body. Even immortal emperors could not avoid the curse of the Emperor's tomb. "Do you have a way to dispel the curse?" Su Zimo sent a voice transmission to Tang Zi. "Yes." Tang Zi only said a single word and did not reply. "It's about time. Prepare yourselves." Prince Yuanzhua suddenly said. Under the lead of the fat and skinny old men, everyone entered the teleportation formation. After a while, a few maidservants at the side activated the teleportation formation. A blinding beam of light burst forth from the teleportation formation and enveloped everyone before soaring into the skies. Su Zimo felt his head spin and the scene before him tore and shifted continuously. After a long time, Su Zimo's feet sank and he landed on the ground once more. The moment he descended, Su Zimo frowned. The green lotus bloodline flowed through his body and he was extremely sensitive to the outside world. He could clearly sense a strange power enveloping him, seeping into his body and even his bloodline. Even the green lotus true body could not purge it. The curse of the Emperor's tomb. Tang Zi was not exaggerating. Even his green lotus true body could not defend against the power of the Emperor's tomb's curse. Su Zimo secretly took out a supreme black-grade dermic treasure from his storage bag. In the blink of an eye, the dermic treasure was covered in a layer of green spots and had no spirit chi. It was completely crippled. It was not only living beings, even dermic treasures could not escape the corrosion of the Emperor's tomb's curse. Su Zimo looked at the others. Tang Zi and the 2 old men had calm expressions. Tang Zi was long prepared and was naturally not surprised. As commanders, the 2 old men were already prepared to die upon entering the Emperor's tomb. Given their lifespans, they would not be able to live for long even if they were not tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. As for the others, they gradually noticed something amiss as well. What happened? Is this the secret ground? I feel a strange power floating around. It's a little sinister inside here. The crowd discussed. Suddenly, the fat old man laughed with a strange expression and said coldly, "Congratulations on coming to the Emperor's tomb." "The Emperor's tomb? What Emperor's tomb?" someone asked hurriedly with a frightened expression. "The Emperor's tomb is where an immortal emperor was buried." The skinny old man said, "The only hope for you guys to survive now is to find the Jade Talisman as soon as possible. Otherwise, the longer you stay in the Emperor's tomb, the harder it will be for you to return alive. Chapter 1968, Dead King. Chapter 1968, Dead King. Buried Immortal Emperor. Those words were way too shocking for most of the cultivators present. Even though Su Zimo had long heard about the origin of the Emperor's tomb from Tang Zi, he felt an indescribable pressure now that he was truly here. It was an indescribable feeling that resembled the might of an immortal emperor. The immortal emperor had died for millions of years, but his emperor's might still existed. Everyone was only at the Black Essence realm. For them, entering the tombs and cave abodes of Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals was definitely a rare opportunity. However, the tomb of an immortal emperor. Cultivators who could ascend to the upper world were no fools and could naturally tell that this tomb was definitely not a friendly place. Even if it was as Prince Yuanzhua had said and there were unimaginable treasures and inheritance secret skills, there would definitely be dangers that no one could endure. Since we're here, there's no harm in telling you guys that all of you are cursed right now. If you want to survive, you have to find the Jade Talisman as soon as possible. I'll lead you back to the prince's residence and His Highness will naturally step in to help you guys remove the curse in your bodies. The skinny old man said coolly. How do we return to the prince's residence? Suddenly Su Zimo asked. The moment he entered the emperor's tomb, he realized that there were no exits. In the prince's residence, they made use of the power of the teleportation formation to break through the barrier of the emperor's tomb and enter this place. However, there were no teleportation formations in the emperor's tomb. The fat old man harumphed coldly. You don't have to ask about this. Once you find the Jade Talisman, we'll naturally have a way to take you back. Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Even Black Immortals can't stay in the emperor's tomb for more than a year. Otherwise, even if they have extraordinary methods, they won't be able to remove the curse in their bodies. In addition, if you sense any commotion in this world, it means that the Emperor's tomb has left Divine Firmament mainland and is hidden in the void once more. At that time we have to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll float in the dark void with the Emperor's tomb and lose track of time, winding up as a skeleton in this tomb. The fat and skinny old men led everyone forward. Everyone did not dare to move too quickly and looked around as they advanced. Su Zimo looked up. At the top of the firmaments, there were stars that shone brightly. This did not look like a tomb but another world. In the starry skies, there were dilapidated gigantic beams that were built together. They were covered with ghastly green moss and there were occasionally thick stone pillars that soared into the skies and stood upright on the ground. The beams and stone pillars were more like ancient structures from millions of years ago that had been destroyed by time. However, it was still extremely shocking. Compared to those ancient structures, everyone was as insignificant as specks of dust falling from above. The surroundings were silent without any signs of life or sound. The footsteps of everyone walking through the ruins echoed in their ears clearly. Everyone advanced for half a day without encountering any obstacles or danger. Some cultivators gradually relaxed. What's that? Suddenly, someone pointed ahead and exclaimed softly. In front of everyone, there seemed to be a figure sitting cross-D on the ground with his back facing them. His long hair draped over his shoulders and he wore a golden robe that shimmered. It should be a human, but I can't see through his cultivation. Li Tian frowned slightly and said in a deep voice. The skinny old man had an indifferent expression. Everyone don't be nervous. Almost all the cultivators who entered the Emperor's tomb now are Black Immortals. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. The golden-robed man at the front should be a dead man. Fellow Taoist, who are you? Why are you blocking our path? A cultivator glared at the back of the golden-robed man and asked loudly. A moment later, the golden-robed man did not reply and the cultivator's voice was the only thing that reverberated through the world. That person might have died a long time ago. From the looks of it, his cultivation was not weak when he was alive. The fat old man muttered. Everyone advanced carefully, not daring to get too close. There are words on the ground. Jianghu cultivated the Tao of the sword and glared at the ground in front of the golden-robed man with a sharp gaze. Everyone hurried forward and focused their gazes. I'm King Feng Xian and I'm filled with fiend techniques that are unprecedented. To think that I would die trapped in this emperor's tomb today. How tragic. It's a pity that my cultivation techniques can't be passed down. It's truly a loss for the fiend domain and a great regret for the world. Although there were not many words, the content was extremely shocking. Tang Zi had once told Su Zimo that more than 20 kings had died in this emperor's tomb. To think that they would encounter a king realm expert immediately upon entering the emperor's tomb bureau, it was a fiend king of the fiend domain. Su Zimo could clearly sense that the breathing of many cultivators in the surroundings had turned heavy and their gazes were burning. Everyone's gazes landed on the storage bag on King Feng Xian's waist. Apart from the fiend king's inheritance, there were many other treasures in a king's storage bag. It was clear that no one had touched the corpse of King Feng Xian. In other words, whoever could obtain the storage bag would be able to obtain the complete inheritance of a king. Su Zimo did not act rashly. He realized that the fat and skinny old men had no intention of advancing, as though they were not interested in King Feng Xian's storage bag. It was impossible for anyone to remain unmoved against the inheritance and treasures of a fiend king. There was definitely something strange about the reaction of the fat and skinny old men. Su Zimo looked at Tang Zi, who was not far away. Tang Zi had an indifferent expression as well and did not move forward. After a moment of silence, someone finally could not help but probe, "Senior, the storage bag of this King Feng Xian. His Highness said that he doesn't want any of the treasures in the Emperor's tomb. If you guys can obtain them based on your own capabilities, it'll be yours," the fat old man said with a smile. Initially, Li Tian wanted to step forward. However, his heart skipped a beat as he sensed a flash of mockery in the depths of the fat old man's eyes and stopped in his tracks. Although he looked boorish, he was extremely meticulous. On the other side, Jianghu did not move either. The moment the fat old man said that, two cultivators could not hold it in any longer and charged forward to grab the storage bag on King Feng Xian's waist. Right as the two of them arrived beside King Feng Xian, before they could even touch the storage bag, a change happened. The two lines of words on the ground suddenly burst forth with a cold glint. They were extremely sharp and minced the two cultivators into a blood mist. Everyone was shocked. The entire process happened too quickly, and in the blink of an eye, the two cultivators were dead without a corpse left. The blood mist gradually floated down and seeped into the ground. The blood stained the mud, and another line of blood-colored words gradually appeared. "If you want to inherit my fiend techniques, you'll have to die with me." Ah! Through that line of words, everyone seemed to be able to see the contorted expression of King Feng Xian before his death. He had no intention of leaving behind any inheritance. As a fiend king, he was buried here with endless resentment and only wanted to find more people to die with him. Unfortunately, he had not expected that after countless years, the might of the methods he left behind would decrease significantly. He merely killed two black immortals before the cold lights dissipated into the world. Chapter 1969 Food. Chapter 1969 Food. When the skinny old man saw that, he sneered, "The people of the fiend domain have evil hearts and are ruthless. These are their methods." Su Zimo sneered internally. Although the fat and skinny old men bragged of their immortal domain background, the two of them tempted others to step forward despite knowing that it was a trap set by King Feng Xian. Their thoughts were probably even more vicious than King Feng Xian, who was from the fiend domain. The trump card left behind by King Feng Xian could only be considered as a weapon at most. What truly killed the two black immortals of the lower worlds was the bewitchment of the fat and skinny old men. "Senior, there shouldn't be any danger now, right?" a black immortal of the lower worlds asked carefully. "I don't know about that," the fat old man said with a smile. No matter what, this was the corpse of a king after all, and his storage bag was right in front of them. There might be unimaginable treasures within. Everyone was indignant and unwilling to leave. A moment later, someone retrieved another dermic treasure from his storage bag and stood far away, controlling it to charge towards King Feng Xian's storage bag. The moment that person's dermic treasure flew out, it lost its spirit chi before it even made contact with King Feng Xian's corpse and fell to the ground with green spots all over its body. "Ah!" the person exclaimed softly. He had completely lost control of the dermic treasure. Su Zimo had already known about this the moment he entered the Emperor's tomb and was naturally not surprised. The other cultivators were shocked. The skinny old man said coldly, "I forgot to remind you guys not to use any dermic treasures in this Emperor's tomb. Any dermic treasure that's exposed will be corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb and turned into scrap metal." Someone frowned. "In other words, we can only rely on our bodies, bloodlines, divine powers, or secret skills." "Haha." Li Tian burst into laughter. "That's perfect. I ascended after crossing the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Let's see whose body and bloodline in this emperor's tomb can compare to mine. Jianghu had a cold expression and remained silent. Ordinary sword cultivators would definitely specialize in body tempering. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to unleash the killing power of the sword Dao to its limits. As they discussed, someone sneaked behind King Fengxian and approached. In the blink of an eye, that person was inches away from King Fengxian. With a fervent gaze, that person reached out towards the storage bag on King Fengxian's waist with lightning speed. I've got it. The person was overjoyed and was about to open his storage bag to check for treasures when a fingertip-sized green ghost flame floated out from King Fengxian's corpse. When the ghost flame landed on the black immortal of the lower worlds, it swept through his body rapidly as though it had encountered strong wine. In the blink of an eye, the black immortal of the lower worlds burned with ghastly green flames and turned into a gigantic human-shaped fireball. Many cultivators retreated hurriedly to distance themselves. A tragic cry sounded from the fireball. In less than a few breaths, the tragic cries vanished and the flesh of the black immortal of the lower worlds was burned into nothingness by the green flames, leaving only a corpse filled with green spots on the ground. This time round, even Su Zimo was secretly alarmed. Although he specialized in the Tao of flames, even he felt his heart skip a beat and his scalp tingle from the power contained in the ghastly green flames. If he was tainted by that flame, it would be difficult for him to survive. Humph, that's the cursed ghost fire. The skinny old man said coldly, in this emperor's tomb, the corpses of some experts can nurture cursed ghost fire that can burn flesh and incinerate essence spirits. This is just a small lesson for you guys. There are too many things in this emperor's tomb that can kill you guys. Jianghu closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art, slashing a sword beam at the storage bag on the ground through the void. Perhaps due to the passage of time or the corrosion of the curse of the emperor's tomb, even the storage bag of a king could not withstand the sword beam and shattered instantly. Splash! The items in the storage bags fell to the ground. Everyone turned their gazes over. It had to be said that there were indeed many treasures in a king's storage bag. There were more than 10,000 dermic treasures and spirit treasures alone. They were stacked together and almost formed a small mountain. Unfortunately, those dermic treasures were filled with green spots and had lost their sentience. They were completely crippled. Some of the cultivation resources such as spirit stones in the storage bag lost their essence chi as well. For example, some elixirs were filled with curses and no one dared to consume them even if they were still effective. Many cultivators were disappointed. There were no treasures in the storage bag that cost 3 lives to open. Let's go. The skinny old man said in a deep voice. Everyone followed behind the fat and skinny old men and continued forward. Su Zimo did not follow. Instead, he stood not far away and stared at the small mountain of dermic treasures and spirit treasures with a shimmering gaze. What are you doing there? The skinny old man asked with a frown when he realized that Su Zimo was not following him. Su Zimo did not even look at the skinny old man and replied casually, you guys leave first. I'll take a look around and catch up to you guys before long. Umph. The skinny old man's expression darkened. Don't blame me for not reminding you. If you get separated from us, you'll be buried in this emperor's tomb. With that said, the skinny old man led everyone forward and ignored Su Zimo. Suddenly, Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Are you thinking that there are way too few treasures in the storage bag of a fiend king? That's right. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Tang Zi sent a voice transmission. King-level experts can condense grotto heavens. Their true treasures are nurtured in the grotto heaven and refined day and night. They won't be placed in storage bags. A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. It was no wonder why he did not discover any grotto heaven spirit treasures. According to Tang Zi, treasures such as grotto heaven spirit treasures should be hidden in King Fengxian's grotto heaven. Tang Zi continued, even if King Fengxian is dead, we won't be able to open his grotto heaven given our capabilities. You don't have to try. Yes, you guys leave first. I'll be there soon. Su Zimo did not explain further. Apart from the fact that he was curious about the rare treasures in King Fengxian's storage bag, there was another important reason why he stayed. It was the small mountain of dermic treasures and spirit treasures before him. To others, those dermic treasures and spirit treasures were nothing but scrap metal. However, that was not the case for Su Zimo. To be precise, it was of great use to the Hell Suppression Tripod. That was because after the storage bag was opened, the Hell Suppression Tripod let out a long-awaited vibration. It was a sign that it wanted to devour and refine weapons. Although these weapons were tainted by the curse, the Hell Suppression Tripod did not seem to care. To it, these weapons were food. They were just a little filthy. Su Zimo waited for the fat and skinny old men to lead everyone away. After disappearing from sight, he summoned the Hell Suppression Tripod. Indeed. Although the Hell Suppression Tripod was exposed in the Emperor's tomb, there were no green spots on its body. Even the curse of the Emperor's tomb could not taint the Hell Suppression Tripod. Chapter 1970 Strange Lifeforms. Chapter 1970 Strange Lifeforms. Su Zimo was extremely cautious and did not advance rashly. Instead, he controlled the Hell Suppression Tripod and approached the small mountain of dermic treasures in the distance. Indeed. The moment the Hell Suppression Tripod approached the dermic treasures, a few more wisps of ghastly green ghost flames floated out from King Feng Xian's corpse. The ghost flames seemed to possess some sort of sentience and would float out to incinerate any external objects that approached. Su Zimo controlled the Hell Suppression Tripod and did not dodge. Instead, he charged towards the ghost flames. When the ghost flames landed on the outer wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod, they were absorbed by the vermilion bird's sacred soul before the flames could spread and vanished. Boom. The Hell Suppression Tripod continued forward and collided against the small mountain of dermic treasures before it. Instantly, the dermic treasures collapsed and scattered everywhere. A powerful suction force burst forth from the Hell Suppression Tripod. Among the 10,000 dermic treasures, 1,000 weapons were selected and pulled into the Hell Suppression Tripod. Those weapons were sentient dermic treasures. After a sentient dermic treasure passed through the heavenly tribulation, it would gain sentience and the material of the dermic treasure would transform. Even if it was crippled and lost its sentience, this scrap material was of great use to the Hell Suppression Tripod. If he were to refine all the spirit treasures, there was a high chance he could repair the third wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod. If he could repair the third tripod wall, not only could the third sacred soul awaken, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra would be even more complete as well. Whether or not Su Zimo could find the Jade Talisman for this trip to the Emperor's tomb, he had already gained enough by now. If not for this Emperor's tomb, who knew how long it would take to collect so many spirit treasures? An extremely terrifying heat burst forth from the Hell Suppression Tripod and melted all the spirit treasures that were dragged in, turning them into red molten metal before long. Su Zimo discovered that there were also some strange green bubbles mixed in the molten metal. If he was not wrong, those green bubbles were the curse of the Emperor's tomb. With the curse of the Emperor's tomb, it might take even longer for the Hell Suppression Tripod to refine and absorb all the spirit treasures. Su Zimo was in no rush. At the very least, there was no need for the Hell Suppression Tripod in the Emperor's tomb for the time being. About 2 hours later, Su Zimo waited for the Hell Suppression Tripod to devour the 1,000 spirit treasures before putting it away and chasing in the direction of Tang Zi and the others. This time round, Su Zimo released his spirit perception and sped up. Before long he caught sight of Tang Zi and the others. Initially there were more than 90 people when they parted ways. In just 2 hours there were only slightly more than 50 people left in the group. Of the remaining cultivators, apart from Tang Zi, the others were pale with fear, as though they had suffered immense shock. What happened? Su Zimo chased and asked with a frown. Someone gulped and said with lingering fear, "We passed by a White Bones ruin earlier on. Who would have thought that the White Bones would come to life and start a massacre? We can't defeat them and many of us died. Some of us were even hunted down by the White Bones and they're probably doomed. Most of the cultivators who died here were former experts. The corpses left behind would not rot for millions of years. If they were reanimated, even Heaven Immortals might not be able to defend against them, let alone Black Immortals. I want to go back. I don't want to die." A cultivator clutched the wound on his abdomen with a pale expression. He was on the brink of a mental breakdown and muttered repeatedly, "You won't be able to return without me." The skinny old man harumphed coldly. "I don't want to continue walking or look for any Jade Talisman anymore. You guys can continue looking for it on your own." The person said with a horrified expression as he retreated, wanting to return the way he came. However, he had barely taken a few steps when his body began to stagger. Arching his body, he clutched his abdomen with both hands and let out a deep growl, as though he was enduring immense pain. Immediately after, the person fell to the ground and the blood flowing out of the wound on his abdomen turned green as his skin rotted. After a series of tragic cries, the person was unrecognizable and his life force was extinguished. The fat old man seemed to have a sense of trepidation as well. The corpses in the Emperor's tomb are stained with the curse of the Emperor's tomb all year round. Even an unassuming bone fragment is a great killing weapon. Anyone injured by those corpses will definitely die. Tang Zi glanced at that person before retracting her gaze. Although she was still expressionless, she still felt her heart skip a beat when she saw that. What happened? Su Zimo sent a voice transmission. How did those white bones come to life? Tang Zi said, the Emperor's tomb is filled with the power of curses all year round. However, after millions of years of evolution, some strange living beings were born. These living beings are tiny and difficult to detect. Although they are extremely weak, they can attach themselves to the white bones and control them to fight. There were all sorts of things in the vast world. Many living beings were born in special environments and strange worlds. The living beings that Tang Zi mentioned could survive in the environment of the Emperor's tomb. However, there was a high chance that they would not be able to survive a single day outside. After a moment of silence, Tang Zi continued, the greatest threat in the Emperor's tomb is not these strange living beings, but some ghost immortals. Su Zimo was shocked. Although this was the first time he heard about ghost immortals, he already had a rough understanding. Ghost immortals were similar to the otherworldly soldiers of Tianhuang mainland. These were cultivators who met with undeserved calamities or the descent of bad luck. As their vengeance, resentment and grievances accumulated over a long period of time, the ghost immortals would be condensed. None of the experts who entered the Emperor's tomb were spared. It was clear how strong the resentment of those experts was. Tang Zi continued, the ghost immortals in the Emperor's tomb are even more terrifying because they are still tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. We can't even touch them, let alone fight them. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. This Emperor's tomb was even more terrifying than he had imagined. If he was unlucky and encountered any ghost immortal, he might die here. The fat and skinny old men had grim expressions as well. The two of them had not expected that they would lose close to half of their cultivators in less than a day after entering the Emperor's tomb. At this rate, it would be impossible for him to survive a month in the Emperor's tomb, let alone search for the Jade Talisman. Everyone follow closely. Don't act on your own this time round. The skinny old man glared at Su Zimo and said sternly. The fat old man determined the direction and led everyone forward. Before long, a green fog appeared in front of everyone and enveloped them. It's the curse fog. Run. The fat old man's expression changed starkly as he shrieked. Before his sentence was finished, Tang Zi had already recognized the origin of the green fog and sped towards the back. In their panic, everyone moved as well. Chapter 1971, 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. Chapter 1971, 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. Everyone panicked and ran with all their might. They only stopped after running for more than 50 kilometers. The curse fog behind them had already vanished. The fat and skinny old man counted the number of people and realized that more than 10 people had disappeared. It was unknown if they were separated from everyone or devoured by the curse fog. Their group had only entered the Emperor's tomb for less than half a day and there were only slightly more than 30 of them left. They had suffered immense losses. After half a day of encounters, everyone was fearful and even ruthless people like Li Tian and Jianghu fell silent. No matter how strong they were only tyrants of the Black Essence realm. There were way too many things that could kill them in the Emperor's tomb. What was that curse fog earlier on? Some cultivators could not help but ask with lingering fear. The skinny old man said with a dark expression, for various reasons, the curse of the Emperor's tomb gathered and materialized. If you're devoured by the curse fog, the power of the curse will seep into your flesh, organs and marrow. Even if you can leave this place alive, you'll definitely die. Right now, everyone had just entered the Emperor's tomb. Although they were cursed, the power had yet to truly seep into their bodies. That was also the reason why there was a chance to dispel it. Let's go. After resting for an hour, the fat old man rose and continued forward with the remaining 30-odd people. Actually, Su Zimo had a chance to flee during the escape earlier on. However, there was no need for him to act alone since the method to leave the Emperor's tomb was with the fat and skinny old men. Furthermore, the environment of the Emperor's tomb was complicated and dangerous, and he did not know much about it. If he followed the crowd and encountered danger, he would have a higher chance of surviving instead. What's that? Before long, a sharp-eyed cultivator pointed to an area in the distance and shouted. There was a glow in that area that resembled a gigantic mirror. There were even faint flashes of resplendent and strange lights on the mirror. Su Zimo's eyesight was strong, and he had long seen that it was a gigantic lake. The lake water rippled and reflected some light, attracting everyone's attention. As for the resplendent light on the lake, he could not see it clearly due to the distance. "Let's go take a look," the skinny old man said in a deep voice and led everyone in that direction. It's a lake. Some cultivators recognized it. There's quite a number of people over there. Before they arrived at the lake, everyone realized that there were many cultivators standing around the lake. They formed teams and distanced themselves from one another to form different factions. Su Zimo swept his gaze across. There were around 8 factions around the lake, and their cultivation realms were similar. All of them were grade 8 or 9 black immortals. However, there were no recognizable emblems on the bodies of these cultivators, and it was unknown where they came from. Before entering the Emperor's tomb, Prince Yuanzhua had already mentioned it. Apart from them, there were definitely other factions that entered the Emperor's tomb. They're just small sects and factions. There's nothing to fear. The skinny old man made a rough judgment, and his expression softened. Let's go. Senior, these sects and factions don't have any emblems. How did you judge them? A cultivator asked. The skinny old man said proudly, any true major sect or faction that enters the Emperor's tomb will definitely not hide their tracks. Instead, they will reveal their unique emblems to intimidate others. As he said that, the skinny old man pointed to a black gold badge on his waist. There was a huge Jin word on the badge. Look over there. People from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom are here as well. I heard that apart from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, the other 2 immortal kingdoms sent people in as well. Not only that, I heard that the 4 immortal sects sent people into the Emperor's tomb with their own motives as well. Some cultivators around the lake recognized Su Zimo's group and whispered. Some cultivators seemed unwilling to provoke them and avoided them. The 3 immortal kingdoms ruled over territories in Divine Firmament mainland and had kings respectively, possessing absolute dominance. Apart from the 4 immortal sects, no other sect or faction could go against them. The entire world belonged to the kings. Within the territory of the immortal kingdoms, all sects, aristocratic families, cultivators and living beings had to obey the rule of the immortal kingdoms and could not disobey. The cultivators around the lake recognized the identity of the fat and skinny old men and were naturally unwilling to get into a conflict with them. Li Tian and the others had just experienced many dangers and were in a sorry state. Now that they found some confidence, they puffed up their chests instinctively and regained their vigor. Su Zimo and the others arrived near the lake and focused their gazes. In the middle of the lake was a lone island that shone with beautiful, resplendent lights from time to time. Furthermore, a faint medicinal fragrance wafted over from the direction of the lone island. Could it be? The fat old man glared at the light on the island and suddenly exclaimed with widened eyes, "It's the 7 glow immortal ginseng." The skinny old man nodded repeatedly as well. It's definitely the 7 glow immortal ginseng. There's no mistake about it. To think that a 7 glow immortal ginseng would grow in this Emperor's tomb. Furthermore, it's completely ripe and glows with 7 different colors. The fat and skinny old men were agitated and even lost their composure. Su Zimo could not help but send a voice transmission to Tang Zi. What's a 7 glow immortal ginseng? This is one of the most famous immortal herbs of the upper world. Legend has it that once it ripens, it will emit 7 different glows and can even revive the dead. No matter how badly injured one is, they will recover completely. If a mature 7 glow immortal ginseng was outside, even perfected immortals and immortal kings would fight for it. After a brief pause, Tang Zi continued, in addition, the 7 glow immortal ginseng can also increase a cultivator's lifespan. A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. It was no wonder why the fat and skinny old men were so worked up. The 2 of them only chose to enter the Emperor's tomb when their lifespans were almost up. If they could obtain the 7 glow immortal ginseng, they would naturally be free from the threat of lifespan exhaustion. Su Zimo also noticed something strange. Even the usually calm Tang Zi's voice trembled when she described the 7 glow immortal ginseng. If what Tang Zi said was true, an immortal herb as such was indeed a supreme treasure. Su Zimo was the green lotus true body to begin with, and this immortal herb was of great use to him as well. However, he could still maintain his composure. The fact that the surrounding cultivators did not make any moves despite the appearance of such an immortal herb in the Emperor's tomb was proof that it was not easy to obtain. Su Zimo's gaze landed on the surface of the lake. The lake water was clear and green. Even with Su Zimo's eyesight, he could not see what was beneath the lake. However, if there was danger, it was extremely likely to be in this lake. As he pondered, the fat and skinny old men had already calmed down and returned to normal. Surveying his surroundings, the skinny old man suddenly asked, "Who's going to retrieve this immortal ginseng?" Chapter 1972 Change. Chapter 1972, Change. None of the cultivators beside the fat and skinny old men replied. None of them were fools. Against such a treasure, the other sects and factions did not make any moves. Who knew what dangers they would encounter if they snatched the 7 glow immortal ginseng? The fat old man said with a smile, "Her Highness said that apart from that item, the other treasures in the Emperor's tomb will belong to whoever can obtain them. This is your opportunity." The skinny old man added, "Don't worry, if you can obtain the 7 glow immortal ginseng, no other sect or faction will dare to lay their hands on it." Some cultivators attempted to reach the edge of the lake and looked at it intently. The lake water was calm and deep such that one could not see what was going on within. Even spirit consciousnesses could not penetrate it. A cultivator attempted to throw out a few rocks, creating a series of ripples on the surface of the lake. There was still no activity in the massive lake. When the other cultivators around the lake saw that, they used all sorts of methods to test the edge of the lake but to no avail. Finally, a cultivator could not hold it in any longer and leaped up, sprinting towards the lone island on the lake. That person's movement technique was extremely brilliant. Stepping on the lake water with his feet, he left a shallow mark on the surface of the lake at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, he was only half a step away from the island. There was no danger throughout the entire process. As for Su Zimo, he glared at the deep lake the entire time. His spirit perception could clearly sense that danger was approaching. When the other cultivators saw that, they could not hold it in either. If this person were to snatch the 7 glow immortal ginseng and devour it in one go, it would be a huge loss for them. Instantly, dozens of figures around the lake moved and released their movement techniques, speeding towards the lone island. Although black immortals could fly, it consumed too much essence chi. Therefore, most of the cultivators chose to speed on the surface of the lake and make use of the water's power to hold their bodies back. That way, everyone would have time and strength to react even if they encountered any changes. Sensing that the lake was dangerous, Su Zimo took a few steps back instinctively. On the other side, his expression changed as he noticed Tang Zi walking towards the edge of the lake. She was staring at the lone island in the distance, seemingly moved. What is she doing? Su Zimo was curious. Right then, a tragic cry sounded from the direction of the lake and stopped. Su Zimo looked over and did not see what happened. What happened? Su Zimo asked with a frown. A cultivator at the side widened his eyes in disbelief and said slowly, "The cultivator at the front suddenly sank to the bottom of the lake and disappeared." When Su Zimo saw that the person wanted to speak but stopped, he asked, "What did you want to say?" The cultivator said hesitantly, "It's as though something in the lake dragged that person down." Ah! Right then, another tragic cry sounded from the lake. Su Zimo had been staring at the lake the entire time. This time round he saw everything clearly. Suddenly, a black shadow darted out from beneath the lake and opened its mouth, devouring the legs of a cultivator before dragging him into the lake. The black shadow's gaping mouth was filled with extremely sharp serrated teeth. The moment the cultivator sank into the lake, a fountain of blood spewed out. The sudden change shocked the dozens of cultivators who were speeding on the lake, and their expressions changed. Those cultivators were rather sharp and stopped right away. Circulating their dermic arts, they soared into the air, wanting to leave the lake. However, before those cultivators could escape completely, black shadows tore through the surface of the lake and leaped out, devouring the cultivators in midair. This time round, all the cultivators around the lake could see it clearly. The black shadows were strange-looking fish. They were pitch black and had no eyes. Their tails were huge as they slapped the surface of the lake with a tremendous force, causing their bodies to leap into midair. Instantly, hundreds of the eyeless fishes broke through the surface of the lake and chased after the cultivators in midair. The teeth of the eyeless fishes were extremely sharp. Once they opened their mouths, their jaws would protrude in a menacing manner. Once bitten by the eyeless fishes, there was no way to escape. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 eyeless fishes devoured a cultivator until only a skeleton was left. The dozens of cultivators were way too close to the surface of the lake. The eyeless fishes leaped up from the lake and many cultivators did not have time to dodge. Before long, they were devoured by the eyeless fishes and buried in the lake. I seem to have seen this fish in an ancient book. The fat old man at the side murmured with a wary expression. It said that for this fish, they only possess one of the 5 senses, smell. They are able to smell all sorts of life. Once other living beings enter their territory, they will attack in groups until they are torn apart and devoured. Swoosh! Right then, another figure appeared on the lake and sped towards the lone island in the middle. Above the lake, tragic cries sounded continuously and it was filled with blood. No one dared to take another step forward. Li Tian, Jianghu and the others were pale as well and rejoiced internally. Thankfully they did not act rashly. Otherwise, given their capabilities, they would not have been able to escape the pursuit of the many eyeless fishes. The appearance of that figure was extremely striking. There's truly someone who isn't afraid of death and dares to head up. This treasure is right in front of us after all. If we can risk our lives for such a huge opportunity, there's a high chance that we can experience a meteoric transformation. What's the point of a meteoric transformation if you can't even survive? Some cultivators sneered. It's Tang Zi. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Earlier on, he noticed that Tang Zi was moved. Furthermore, her emotions fluctuated unusually when she saw the 7-glow immortal ginseng. He had not expected that Tang Zi would ignore the danger and force her way through the lake towards the lone island. Of course, as an assassin, Tang Zi had a good grasp of the opportunity to make a move. At that moment, the attention of the hundreds of eyeless fishes was on the dozens of cultivators in midair. As for Tang Zi, she ignored the consumption of her essence qi and flew through the air. She was almost 90 feet high and crossed everyone's heads towards the lone island. Just as Tang Zi was halfway through her journey, the surface of the lake splashed. At least thousands of black shadows broke through the water surface and chased after Tang Zi, who was in midair. Pust! Many cultivators felt their scalps tingle when they saw that. Thousands of eyeless fishes broke out of the water and soared into the air. They managed to reach 90 feet and even higher. Instantly, Tang Zi fell into danger. Ah! Suddenly, Tang Zi opened her mouth and let out a long howl, releasing the sound of an immortal wail. Chapter 1973 Zephyr Thunder Wings. Chapter 1973, Zephyr Thunder Wings. Tang Zi had a good plan. She wanted to make use of the burst of the immortal wail sound to fight for a chance of survival and break out of the encirclement. However, the eyeless fishes only possessed the sense of smell and no hearing. Although the burst of the immortal wail sound was strong, it did not affect the eyeless fishes at all. Tang Zi's expression was unchanged as electric arcs burst forth from her body and gathered rapidly behind her, forming a pair of thunder wings. Boom! Boom! Amidst the lightning and thunder, Tang Zi soared into the air once more at an extremely fast speed. Before the thousands of eyeless fishes surrounded her, she broke out of the encirclement and sped towards the lone island. 4 black immortals, even if they flew in the air, the height they could climb was limited and the highest was only 90 feet. However, with the help of her thunder wings, Tang Zi was able to reach a height of more than 100 feet and her movement technique speed had even doubled. After obtaining the Thunder Emperor's inheritance, Su Zimo recognized at a glance that this was a secret skill of the Void Thunder Manual, the Zephyr Thunder Wings. Cultivating the Zephyr Thunder Wings was equivalent to obtaining the legacy of the Void Thunder Manual. Previously, Su Zimo had already vaguely guessed that Tang Zi might be related to the Thunder Emperor. Now his guess was confirmed. On the other side, the fat and skinny old men narrowed their eyes slightly with cold expressions when they saw that. The two of them exchanged glances without saying anything. Another ripple appeared above the lake after Tang Zi released her Zephyr Thunder Wings. Swoosh! Suddenly, the lake split open and a gigantic black shadow broke through the water surface. Like an anaconda that was dozens of feet long, it whipped towards Tang Zi with a layer of mist. The black shadow was too fast and arrived almost instantly. When Tang Zi used her Zephyr Thunder Wings, her speed was extremely shocking as well. By the time she realized, it was already too late for her to dodge. Tang Zi felt a large black shadow envelop her and could only prop up her arms and circulate her blood qi to defend. Compared to the black shadow, Tang Zi looked extremely petite. Bang! There was a dull thud. Tang Zi shuddered and lightning burst forth from her body as her blood qi surged. However, she could not withstand the tremendous force of the black shadow and was sent flying, falling from midair. She spat out a mouthful of blood. This clash caused a huge impact and shock to her organs. The Zephyr thunder wings behind her were shattered by the black shadow and almost dissipated. What's that? It looks like the scarlet black squid. To think that such a ferocious demon beast would be nurtured in this lake. Splash. At the same time, the surface of the lake boiled and gigantic thick tentacles tore through the surface of the lake, chasing after Tang Zi, who was in midair. On the tentacles were circular suction cups the size of basins that squirmed continuously in a terrifying manner. Instantly, hundreds of tentacles danced wildly in midair with a frightening might. The cultivators around the lake were scared out of their wits and retreated one after another, afraid that they would be sucked into the lake by the tentacles. The moment Tang Zi fell, 1,000 eyeless fishes leaped up, wanting to devour her flesh. She could only barely hold on with her damaged Zephyr thunder wings. But now, she could not defend against the encirclement of hundreds of terrifying tentacles from the scarlet black squid. The hundreds of tentacles squirmed and almost formed an impenetrable space, trapping Tang Zi within. Even though she was about to die in the beast's mouth, Tang Zi's expression did not change much. However, she sighed internally. Sigh, I failed to obtain an utmost treasure of that level at the end of the day. A moment of greed cost me my life. I can't blame anyone. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind before she died. Let's go. There's no way we can cross this lone island with this scarlet black squid guarding it. Time to go. Many cultivators shook their heads. Although they were reluctant, they could only leave helplessly. Who is that? Right then, a cultivator caught sight of a figure flash past from the corner of his eye and charged towards the lone island. He truly has a death wish. How dare he charge over? Foo-foo, to think that someone would be so eager to die. Everyone sneered when they saw that figure. The fat and skinny old men's group quickly recognized that it was Su Zimo. When Su Zimo arrived at the edge of the lake, a pair of essence chi wings appeared behind him. Immediately after, an even wider pair of golden wings grew on the wings, shining brightly. Phew. 2 pairs of wings flapped and Su Zimo transformed into a golden streak of light. His speed was at its limits and had even surpassed the reaction of most of the cultivators present. What secret skill is that? It seems to be even faster than that woman's movement technique. The crowd exclaimed. Before the hundreds of tentacles were sealed, the golden light passed through a small crack and arrived beside Tang Zi. It was you. Initially, Tang Zi thought that she would definitely die. However, she did not expect Su Zimo to barge in as well. What are you doing here? Tang Zi glared at Su Zimo. To pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng, of course. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo smiled. And also, to save you along the way. Are you crazy? Tang Zi looked at Su Zimo as though she was looking at a lunatic. Didn't you see what happened earlier on? Even Earth Immortals can't defend against the power of this scarlet black squid. Hurry and leave. The 2 of them were surrounded by hundreds of tentacles in a cramped space that was almost sealed. There were only a few small gaps and the light was dim. Suddenly, their surroundings fell into darkness. There was no gap left in the space formed by hundreds of tentacles. Now, there's no way to leave even if you want to. In the darkness, Tang Zi lowered her head slightly and sighed. Suddenly, she felt her waist tighten and a strong arm wrap around her. Her body stiffened. If it was any other time, she would have killed him long ago. However, at that moment, she was in despair. At the thought that the 2 of them were about to be buried here, she let this man's rude actions go. Let's go. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded in her ears. Swoosh. Tang Zi felt her vision blur as though space was in chaos. She lost track of time and light reappeared. Composing herself, she focused her gaze and could not help but freeze on the spot. The 2 of them had already broken free from the encirclement of the scarlet black squid and arrived above the lake. It's that secret skill. Tang Zi's eyes lit up and she reacted quickly. Back in the 10 Absolute Hell, she tried to assassinate Su Zimo, but he seized the initiative because of this unpredictable secret skill that was almost like teleportation. Su Zimo hugged Tang Zi and the rock wings behind him flapped. With a flash of golden light, he covered 500 kilometers in the blink of an eye and left the scarlet-black squid behind. By the time the scarlet-black squid beneath the lake reacted, Su Zimo and Tang Zi had already arrived on the lone island. Chapter 1974, Darkness. Chapter 1974, Darkness. That person actually went over. What's going on? How did he rush out earlier on? I didn't see it clearly. It was as though he teleported over. What's his background? When the crowd around the lake saw that, a commotion broke out. The fat and skinny old men had grim expressions as well. Even with their eyesight, they could not see clearly how Su Zimo managed to break through the obstruction of the scarlet-black squid and arrive on the lone island. This lad is rather capable. The skinny old man sent a voice transmission to the fat old man. If that lad can really pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng, hee. The fat old man did not continue and merely laughed with a fervent gaze and an excited expression. Above the lone island, Su Zimo controlled the rock wings and descended slowly, releasing his spirit consciousness to check out the situation on the island. As though she sensed something, Tang Zi struggled and distanced herself from Su Zimo hurriedly, lowering her head in silence. I owe you another favor again. A moment later Tang Zi spoke. Initially she had already returned Su Zimo a favor. However, she now owed him another not long after. Tang Zi was a little flustered. She had a stubborn personality and was extremely headstrong, not willing to owe anyone a favor. Initially, she wanted to repay this person's kindness as soon as possible and have nothing to do with him anymore. However, for some reason, her relationship with this person was entangled and she fell even deeper within. It's fine. Su Zimo replied casually, my target is the 7 glow immortal ginseng as well. I merely saved you in passing earlier on. Don't take it to heart. Tang Zi clenched her fist slightly. The more Su Zimo said that, the more she could not let it go. There's something strange about this island. Be careful. Su Zimo's voice sounded once more, causing Tang Zi's heart to skip a beat as she calmed down from her thoughts. The 7 glow immortal ginseng was located in the center of the island. Out of caution, Su Zimo descended at the edge of the lone island. However, after he descended on the lone island, the eyeless fishes and scarlet-black squid did not chase after him. The scarlet-black squid was extremely furious and slapped the lake with its hundreds of tentacles, creating massive waves. However, that demon beast did not dare to approach the lone island at all. Yet, when Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and scanned the lone island, he did not discover any other life. Strange. Su Zimo murmured softly and walked carefully in the direction of the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi followed behind as well. There were many bushes on the island that were as tall as a person. Before long, the two of them disappeared from the line of sight of many cultivators. The island was not big. However, out of caution, Su Zimo took 2 hours to reach the 7 glow immortal ginseng. The two of them did not encounter any danger the entire time. Su Zimo stopped 100 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng and did not continue approaching. Through the bushes in front of him, he could see an immortal ginseng the size of an infant's arm. It shone with 7 rays of light and had a domineering spirit qi, emitting a rich medicinal fragrance. There doesn't seem to be any danger? Tang Zi said softly. Something's not right. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. Although he did not discover any danger in the vicinity and his spirit perception did not even warn him, he felt that something was amiss. Su Zimo scanned his surroundings a few times but still found nothing. What sort of an environment can nurture a treasure like the 7 glow immortal ginseng? Suddenly Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi said, this is a legendary immortal herb. I'm not really sure, but the amount of energy required to nurture such an utmost treasure is unimaginable. There's nothing special about this lone island and I can't see anything unique about it either. I wonder how it managed to nurture such an immortal herb. Su Zimo pondered for a moment but could not think of a reason. Tang Zi said, why don't I go get it? If I can pluck it, I'll give it to you. Su Zimo glanced sideways and his heart skipped a beat. Although Tang Zi did not say it explicitly, she merely wanted to return him a favor. I'll go. Su Zimo smiled gently. He had some treasures and many trump cards. Even if he encountered any danger, he would have a chance to escape. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo pushed aside the bushes in front of him and walked slowly towards the 7 glow immortal ginseng. 90 feet. 70 feet. 50 feet. The closer Su Zimo was to the 7 glow immortal ginseng, the more nervous he became. However, there was no activity around him and it was frighteningly quiet. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was only 30 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng. There was still no danger. Not daring to be careless, Su Zimo maintained his vigilance and continued to approach slowly. 10 feet. As long as he took 2 more steps, the 7 glow immortal ginseng would be within reach. Su Zimo became excited as well and took a step forward. Right then a change happened. The surrounding space seemed to tremble. Immediately after, an extremely pure and cold power spread out around the 7 glow immortal ginseng. To Su Zimo, the void before him was like a blank piece of paper with a drop of pitch-black ink. Thereafter the ink spread and extended continuously. Su Zimo's eyes widened. The darkness extended and devoured everything in its surroundings. The bushes around the 7 glow immortal ginseng were swept by the darkness and vanished completely, becoming a part of it. As though they sensed something, the many eyeless fishes as well as the scarlet-black squid burrowed into the depths of the lake and disappeared. Even the lake water could not withstand the pressure. The waves that were surging earlier on calmed down in the blink of an eye. Look! Someone pointed to the lake and exclaimed. The entire lake seemed to have been splashed with thick ink and turned pitch black, emitting a cold aura that was sinister. On the lone island, Su Zimo's feet seemed to have fallen into a swamp and he could not move at all. When he saw the darkness surging towards him and his spirit perception warning him, Su Zimo released his extreme speed divine power and condensed the rock wings. Even so, he could not escape. It was as though his body had fallen into a bottomless abyss and he could not break free no matter how he struggled. His spirit consciousness moved and he wanted to summon the hell suppression tripod. However, his spirit consciousness seemed to have been devoured by the darkness and lost connection with the hell suppression tripod. He could not release the true Dragon 9 flashes and many other secret skills. Su Zimo could only watch helplessly as the darkness ahead surged over. Su Zimo! Tang Zi's exclamation sounded from behind. Don't come over! Su Zimo roared. Anyone who came forth would be trapped in such a situation. When the darkness swept over, Su Zimo's extended right leg was the first to make contact. Su Zimo lowered his head and his pupils constricted in disbelief. His right foot was the first to disappear after being swept by the darkness. There was no pain. There was no blood. However, Su Zimo knew clearly that his right foot was gone. That was because he could not feel his right foot at all. His flesh and bones were gone, devoured completely by the darkness and became a part of it. Immediately after was his calf. The darkness devoured at an extremely fast speed and the next moment, Su Zimo's entire right leg vanished. Chapter 1975. Escape. Chapter 1975. Escape. Although there was no pain, the feeling was way too terrifying and despairing. In the upper world, one had to cultivate to become an earth immortal before they could regrow their limbs and become a heaven immortal. But now, Su Zimo was only a grade 9 black immortal. Furthermore, not a single drop of blood appeared after he was devoured by the darkness. Even if a heaven immortal came, it would be useless. In the darkness, the only light was the immortal ginseng that emitted a rainbow glow. At that moment, even the immortal ginseng that was initially filled with exuberant life force looked demonic in Su Zimo's eyes. Could that power of darkness be released by the 7 glow immortal ginseng? What should I do? Is the Green Lotus true body truly going to die here today? Dai Yu and the human emperor had told him that the upper world was even more dangerous than Tianhuang mainland. After he ascended to the upper world, he encountered countless life and death dangers and almost died each time. In more than 1,000 years he had not even ventured out of a single region of the heavenly world, the 9 firmament immortal domain, let alone explore the vast trichiliocosm. Countless thoughts flashed through Su Zimo's mind and he felt indignant. Instantly, darkness enveloped him and devoured his figure whole. Suddenly, Su Zimo's left eye turned pitch black and his pupil disappeared. Instead, a gigantic pitch-black vortex appeared with a cold aura. The power released by Su Zimo's left eye was extremely similar to the power of darkness in the surroundings. In fact, it was even purer and more condensed. It was the nether glow stone. Nobody knew the origin of the nether glow stone. There were rumors that the stone came from the upper world. Some people said that the stone came from an illusory major chiliocosm. However, no matter what, the stone did possess the power of extreme darkness and was even devouring the surrounding darkness. As the power of darkness in his body disappeared, Su Zimo's figure reappeared. Only the absorption speed of the nether glow stone was extremely slow. However, the darkness of power surged over continuously and the nether glow stone could not devour and refine all the power of darkness. With that, the corrosion of darkness and the devouring by the nether glow created a temporary balance within Su Zimo's body. Although Su Zimo's figure appeared, it was only a portion of it. To be precise, only a jade green skeleton was revealed. This skeleton was created by Su Zimo using the creation green lotus back in the underground palace of Tianhuang mainland. Although the bones were still present, the flesh on them had vanished completely, devoured by the darkness. On the other side, Tang Zi looked at the darkness ahead with a dim gaze. As an assassin, she had to have a cold-blooded heart and not be restrained by emotions or external objects. The two of them had not known each other for long. Initially, Tang Zi thought that Su Zimo was just a slightly special passerby in her life. However, at that moment when she saw Su Zimo buried in the darkness, she felt a sadness that she had not felt for many years. In that instance, countless images of her interactions with Su Zimo flashed through her mind. To her surprise, she realized that she had spoken to this person more than everything she had spoken in the past few hundred years. As Tang Zi thought about it, a layer of mist gradually appeared in her eyes. Right then, a jade green glow shone on the mist in her eyes. Tang Zi looked up instinctively. Ah! Tang Zi's expression changed as she exclaimed. The scene before her was way too shocking. Two different lights shone in the darkness. Right at the front was the 7 rays of light released by the 7 glow immortal ginseng. 10 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng stood a human-shaped skeleton. It was jade green and emitted a resplendent glow, filled with vitality as it fought against the surrounding darkness. Su Zimo? Tang Zi could not help but call out softly. However, the path ahead was shrouded by darkness and even sound would be devoured instantly. He's not dead. Tang Zi's expression turned nervous. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have imagined that a cultivator's bones would grow to such an extent. More than that, she could not imagine that although the flesh on the skeleton had vanished, it still emitted a tremendous amount of life force. In the darkness, Su Zimo could vaguely sense that the power of darkness around him was gathering. The absorption speed of the nether glow stone was far inferior to the speed of darkness condensation. If he continued to linger in the darkness, even the nether glow stone would not be able to protect him. Instinctively, Su Zimo moved. Immediately after, he was delighted. That was because the nether glow stone absorbed the power of darkness in his body and allowed him to regain some freedom. Although his movement was slow within the darkness, at the very least, he was not immobile as before. Su Zimo was prepared to leave the darkness. However, his gaze suddenly landed on the immortal ginseng that was emitting a rainbow glow. Since I've already come this far, I might as well take the gamble. A decisive look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he made a decision instantly. His flesh had already been devoured by the darkness and it would be a huge loss if he retreated just like that. He did not know how long it would take for his flesh to regrow. Furthermore, he was just a skeleton that was neither human nor ghost right now. If anyone saw it, it would be easy to expose the secret of the Green Lotus true body. At that thought, Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he extended his arm slowly and grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng. He was 10 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng and his arm could not reach it at all. Crackle. Suddenly, the bones of Su Zimo's arm expanded by 10 feet and his jade green bone palm grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng instantly. Up. Su Zimo hollered and exerted strength in his arm, pulling the 7 glow immortal ginseng out of the ground. There was a large amount of mud on the roots. Pulling out the 7 glow immortal ginseng created a huge pit on the ground. Su Zimo grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng and was about to retreat when his gaze inadvertently swept past the pit and paused. That's. He focused his gaze and looked for a moment. As though he recalled something, he shuddered. The surrounding power of darkness surged and turned even colder and purer. Su Zimo's breathing turned extremely heavy and his bones creaked. He did not dare to hesitate and retreated continuously. After he retreated dozens of feet away, the power of darkness gradually dissipated and surged into the pit. What happened earlier seemed like an illusion. However, Su Zimo had experienced it personally and could deeply understand how terrifying that power of darkness was. The surrounding bushes disappeared completely. A radius of 100 feet turned into a vacuum. If not for the nether glow stone, he would have vanished from this world completely like the bushes. Chapter 1976, Gathering. Chapter 1976, Gathering. How are you? Tang Zi's voice sounded from behind and Su Zimo turned around. Tang Zi was startled. Right now, Su Zimo was only a human skeleton without any facial features or flesh. He was extremely terrifying. Tang Zi was long prepared. Even so, she was shocked by Su Zimo's left eye. It was like a black hole that emitted a cold and dark aura. Embedded in Su Zimo's eye socket, it seemed to be able to suck in one's soul. Tang Zi merely took a single glance and felt her consciousness blur. As though he sensed something, Su Zimo lowered his head slightly and did not continue staring at Tang Zi. After a while, the darkness in his left eye gradually dissipated. Hurry and eat this 7-glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi said hurriedly, this immortal herb can revive the dead and flesh the bones. The flesh that you lost can definitely be nourished with the help of the 7-glow immortal ginseng. Su Zimo nodded and sat down in a lotus position without hesitation. He placed the 7-glow immortal ginseng into his mouth and bit off half of it. The 7-glow immortal ginseng did not have the bitterness of herbs. Instead, it was sweet. Su Zimo chewed a few times and swallowed it. A warm current flowed down and an unimaginable amount of essence energy exploded in his stomach and flowed through his entire body. The energy was way too powerful. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and rays of light spewed out. Tang Zi merely absorbed some essence chi from the 7-glow immortal ginseng nearby and felt her injuries heal slightly. Su Zimo's body was burning and every single inch of his bones felt itchy. He was delighted. He knew that the itch was a change that could only happen when flesh was born. Su Zimo lowered his head and saw that a thin blood membrane had already grown on the surface of his jade-green bones. Rich essence energy was still colliding and condensing on it. His flesh was recovering at a visible speed. Just as Su Zimo was about to devour the remaining half of the 7-glow immortal ginseng, he paused and pondered for a moment before sealing the remaining half and putting it away in his storage bag. Actually, the energy of half of the 7-glow immortal ginseng was already extremely terrifying. If not for the fact that Su Zimo was the Green Lotus true body and a supreme god of the Flora race, the energy of the half 7-glow immortal ginseng might have caused him to explode. But now, the Green Lotus true body was growing rapidly as he absorbed the energy of the 7-glow immortal ginseng continuously. In reality, not long after Su Zimo broke through to grade 9 Black Immortal, he encountered the Spirit Mind Blood Calamity and was taken away by the Green Cloud County Governor. If he wanted to break through to the Earth Essence realm, it would take at least hundreds or even 1,000 years. Although the Green Lotus true body absorbed heaven and earth essence chi at a fast speed, the amount of essence chi energy required to grow was extremely shocking. If the energy in that half of the 7-glow immortal ginseng was completely absorbed and refined by the Green Lotus true body, it would be equivalent to hundreds of years of effort. If the Green Lotus true body could break through to the earth essence realm, Su Zimo's combat strength would increase significantly. This was not only an increase in cultivation realm, but also a transformation of the creation Green Lotus itself. When he underwent tribulation transcendence and ascended, the Green Lotus true body grew to grade 9 and created an unfathomable treasure that could be used for both offense and defense, the 9 Heavens living soil. The 9 Heavens living soil originated from the creation Green Lotus to begin with. This meant that as the cultivation realm of the Green Lotus true body increased, the power of the 9 Heavens living soil would increase as well. If the Green Lotus true body could grow to grade 10, there would be another treasure as well. Su Zimo did not know what exact form it would take either. In his consciousness, the refinement of the Hell Suppression tripod continued. Su Zimo could clearly see that most of the cracks on the third tripod wall had healed and the pattern etched on it had already formed an embryonic form. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the Black Tortoise. At that time, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra would be even more perfect and the Black Tortoise sacred soul would leave behind its inheritance. At that time, Su Zimo would undergo a complete transformation and his combat strength would increase significantly. Of course, there was a prerequisite for that: he had to get out of the Emperor's tomb alive. As time passed by, Su Zimo's flesh grew. After half a day, his appearance and features gradually appeared. After a day, his flesh grew continuously and his skin regrew. It looked as fair and tender as a newborn baby with a green glow flowing on it. In Tang Zi's eyes, the green lotus true body was flawless and crystalline. Sitting in a lotus position, it looked like a jade green lotus. Tang Zi retracted her gaze. Although she could tell that Su Zimo's body was extraordinary, she could not recognize the origin of the green lotus true body given her experience. The cultivators around the lake did not disperse after a day. Instead, more gathered. Cultivators of various factions headed over. In the northwest direction of the lake, dozens of cultivators were gathered. Their leader was not old, but he had an indescribably noble aura. "What's going on over there?" the person asked softly with his hands behind his back and sharp eyes. "Commander Yunting, I heard that a 7-glow immortal ginseng grew on the lone island in the lake," a cultivator at the side said. Yunting was unmoved. "There must be danger lurking around such a treasure." The cultivator said, "Commander, you are right. There are many eyeless fishes and a scarlet-black squid guarding this lake, and many people have already died. However..." The person paused for a moment. "I heard that a man and a woman from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom have used some unknown method to break through the obstruction and descended on the lone island." "Oh." Yunting raised his brow in surprise. The cultivator continued, "The man and woman should have obtained the 7-glow immortal ginseng. However, a day has passed and they haven't come out of the lone island. Could the two of them have eaten the 7-glow immortal ginseng?" another person asked. "Absolutely impossible." Yunting shook his head gently and smiled. "Even my body can't withstand the energy contained in the 7-glow immortal ginseng. If the two of them really dare to consume it, they'll be courting death." "Let's go take a look too," Yunting said in a deep voice and headed in the direction of the lake. A gentle breeze blew past and the badge on his waist fluttered. There were 2 words written on it: Zixin. One of the 3 immortal kingdoms of the divine firmament immortal domain, the Zixin immortal kingdom. On the other side, another group of cultivators walked over. Their leader was an old man with a walking stick and a badge on his waist with the words Yin-Yang written on it. The Yin-Yang immortal kingdom. "Elder Gu, do you need me to snatch the 7-glow immortal ginseng later?" a black-robed man behind the old man asked softly. "There are many people gathered here and the situation is unknown. If you really snatch the 7-glow immortal ginseng, you'll easily become a public enemy." Old man Gu said indifferently. "So what if I become a public enemy?" The black-robed man sneered. "I, Fang Xian, am invincible in the lower worlds and ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. I've never met a match in the Black Essence realm. Even if they join forces, I'll be fearless." Hee hee. Old man Gu laughed oddly. "There's quite a bit of commotion here and many people have already been attracted. Notwithstanding the fact that the 3 immortal kingdoms are gathered, even people from the 4 immortal sects have appeared. We should keep a low profile." Chapter 1977, And If I Refuse? Chapter 1977, And If I Refuse? Old man Gu glanced at Fang Xian. "Although you're invincible in the Black Essence realm of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, you might not be able to dominate the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Do you know who he is?" Old man Gu pointed to the young man leading the Zixin Immortal Kingdom and asked slowly. "I don't recognize him." Fang Xian frowned slightly. "Could that person have ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation as well?" Hee hee. Old man Gu smiled. "That child's name is Yun Ting and he's from the upper world. The surname Yun, he's from the royal family of the Zixin Immortal Kingdom." Fang Xian asked with a frown. Old man Gu nodded slightly. "Yun Ting is not only from the royal family, he's also the youngest son of the Zixin Immortal King. He's a prince and is dearly loved by the couple." Fang Xian was even more puzzled and asked, "Why would someone of his noble status come to the emperor's tomb personally?" "I don't know about that." Old man Gu shook his head. Fang Xian pondered for a moment and smiled. "I think he's just a rookie who doesn't know what's good for him. That must be why he came to the emperor's tomb." Old man Gu harumphed coldly. "Don't look down on the fact that this child is only around 200 years old. He was destined to be extraordinary from his birth. This lad was born with a phenomenon. The moment he was born, the sound of a sword buzzing echoed for 3 days, lingering in the ears. At 100 years old, he comprehended a divine power of the Tao of the sword. That is extremely rare in the world. The Zixian Immortal King and his wife even collected countless treasures to nourish his tendons, bones, flesh and blood. There's no doubt that the number 1 black immortal in this emperor's tomb is Yun Ting. You're not his match either. When he heard that, Fang Xian was indignant. No dermic treasure is useful in the emperor's tomb. Even if he knows how to use a sword, he can only fight bare-handed here and his combat strength will be greatly reduced. Before we fight, nobody can determine who will be the victor. There's no need to argue. Old Man Ji's expression darkened as he slammed his walking stick heavily. How about you take a clear look at his status? Even if you can truly defeat him, you will have to die 10 times over if you even hurt a single hair of his. Fang Xian lowered his head and clenched his fists without arguing. A day and night passed. Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly and heaved a sigh of relief. The flesh on his body had already returned to normal and the darkness in his left eye had vanished, as though it had never appeared. In just a day and night of cultivation, he had already reached the peak of the level 9 Black Essence realm and was only a step away from breaking through to the Earth Essence realm. The energy of half of the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng was way too great and there was still a portion left in his body. This was the Emperor's tomb and was not suitable for him to continue cultivating. Su Zimo stopped after recovering his flesh. You're fine now? Although Tang Zi was worried about Su Zimo, there was no expression on her face and her tone had returned to its usual coldness. Su Zimo nodded and turned to look at the mud pit where the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng was originally, deep in thought. What's wrong? Tang Zi could not help but ask when she saw Su Zimo's strange expression. Su Zimo pointed to the mud pit in the distance and said softly, "There seems to be a corpse down there." He still had lingering fear when he recalled the scene of the corpse. That corpse gave him an indescribable fear and pressure. Even when he saw the corpse of King Fengxian back then, the fear and pressure was not as strong. Tang Zi's pupils constricted when she heard that. "I got it." Tang Zi said, "Be it the lake or this island, there's nothing strange about the surroundings. The reason why the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng was born was because of that corpse. The corpse provided the nutrients to nourish a supreme treasure like the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng." Tang Zi said slowly, "This corpse was definitely at least a king when he was alive to be able to nourish a 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. The darkness earlier on should have been emitted by that corpse." Su Zimo said deeply. "Since we've already obtained the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng, let's leave first," Tang Zi said. Su Zimo nodded. He did not want to experience that darkness again. Given his cultivation, it was already extremely fortunate that he could escape alive. Why aren't they out yet? Beside the lake, Li Tian was getting impatient. The shrubs on the lone island were dense and the cultivators waiting by the lake did not know what was going on either. However, everyone could clearly see that the 7 rays of light that belonged to the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng had vanished. This meant that someone had already plucked the Immortal Ginseng. Look, they're out. Right then, a man and woman rose from a lone island far away and flew towards the shore. It was Su Zimo and Tang Zi. Odd enough, the bloodthirsty eyeless fishes and scarlet black squid from earlier on did not appear throughout their journey. Even Su Zimo and Tang Zi were puzzled, let alone the cultivators on the shore. How could this be? Tang Zi murmured softly. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and vaguely guessed an answer. Without the obstruction of demon beasts, the two of them arrived at the shore before long. There were many cultivators around the lake and various factions were gathered, staring at the two of them. The attention of everyone formed an invisible pressure. However, both of them were calm and expressionless. That was Tang Zi's nature. No matter how many people she faced, she was expressionless. Su Zimo was used to storms and naturally, such a scene could not suppress him. "Fellow Taoists, it seems like you've already obtained the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. Congratulations." Far away, the young man in the lead of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom cupped his fists and declared, "I'm Yun Ting of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom. I wonder if you guys have any intention of selling this Immortal Ginseng. You can name any price you want. If you want to let it go, why don't you open it for bidding openly so that everyone will have a chance?" Another cultivator said. "That's right. That suggestion attracted the agreement of many cultivators. You guys can't beat me. Yunting smiled gently. No matter the price, I can make the decision and add 30%. Instantly, the discussions around them quietened down. Those who entered the emperor's tomb did not have high statuses. Even the fat and skinny old men were only servants of Prince Yuanzhua. The young man before them was an actual prince. Even if their wealth was added together, it would not be as much as this person. Seeing that many cultivators were silent, Yunting was pleased and cupped his fists. Thank you for letting me win. Prince Yunting, I'm afraid we'll have to disappoint you. The skinny old man said slowly, this 7-glow immortal ginseng was obtained by the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and will not be let go. Yunting shrugged his shoulders slightly, seemingly unconcerned. The fat old man looked at Su Zimo and Tang Zi and asked softly, who has the 7-glow immortal ginseng? Hand it over to me for safekeeping first. Why? Su Zimo raised his brow slightly and asked. The skinny old man urged with an impatient expression, don't ask so many questions. Hurry and hand over the 7-glow immortal ginseng. Prince Yuanzhua said that if we obtain the treasures in the emperor's tomb, we can take them for ourselves. What do you guys mean by that? Su Zimo asked with a fake smile. A killing intent flashed through the skinny old man's eyes. The fat old man took a deep breath and controlled his temper, saying in a low voice, you're now the target of everyone. It's not safe to leave the 7-glow immortal ginseng with you. It's only safe in our hands. Hand it over when you're asked to. Stop with your nonsense. Unable to hold it in, Li Tian glared at Su Zimo and hollered. And if I refuse? Su Zimo asked with an indifferent expression. Chapter 1978 Kill. Chapter 1978, Kill. The expressions of the fat and skinny old men darkened at the same time. The other cultivators were shocked as well. Su Zimo's words were clearly a provocation to the fat and skinny old men. However, the two of them represented Prince Yuanzhua, the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and supreme authority and strength. Haha. Yunting clapped and smiled. Interesting. This person is truly bold. On the other side, Old Man Gu of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom gloated. The great Jin Immortal Kingdom is going to fight among themselves. Let's watch the show. What did you just say? The skinny old man glared at Su Zimo with a cold gaze and asked icily, I'm old and my ears are a little bad. I didn't hear you clearly earlier on. Repeat it for me. The fat old man sneered, Su Zimo, don't forget your status. You're just a lowlife. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo's reaction made both of them feel humiliated and murderous. The other cultivators shook their heads gently and looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a dead man. Only Tang Zi lowered her head expressionlessly, as though her mind was elsewhere. Exalted immortals, please calm down. Leave this person to me. Li Tian could tell the intentions of the fat and skinny old men and stood out immediately, saying in a deep voice, I'll take his life within 10 moves. All right. The fat old man nodded. If you kill this person, I'll definitely report it to His Highness and record it as a merit for you. Li Tian was delighted. The reason why he stood out at this moment was to leave a good impression on the two old men so that they would put in a good word for him in front of Prince Yuanzhua. Li Tian walked towards Su Zimo and shook his neck, letting out a faint sound. With a ferocious gaze he grinned. Although the 7-glow immortal ginseng is a supreme utmost treasure, it's a pity that you won't be alive to keep it. The two of them were getting closer. The surrounding cultivators dispersed. Everyone present had survived the 10 absolute hell and naturally knew that Li Tian's bloodline and physique were extremely strong and ferocious in melee combat. Su Zimo has lost his final chance. If he had made use of that powerful movement technique from before, he might have been able to deal with Li Tian. However, he has no chance of escaping at this distance. In my opinion, it might end within 3 moves. The two of them were less than 10 feet apart, but Su Zimo was still motionless, as though he did not sense any danger. Many cultivators shook their heads. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he looked at Li Tian before him and said indifferently, This has nothing to do with you. Don't provoke me. Ha 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 ha. Li Tian reared his head in wild laughter. Suddenly, the laughter stopped abruptly. At the same time, Li Tian charged forward and arrived before Su Zimo in the blink of an eye, punching the latter's head. Raging flames burned on his fist. The speed of that punch was so fast that it was like a meteor falling with a terrifying might. Su Zimo raised his palm unhurriedly, but it was just enough to block Li Tian's fist. Piak. When that punch struck Su Zimo's palm, all the power vanished like a clay ox entering the sea. Even the flames on Li Tian's fist were mostly extinguished as though they were suppressed. Li Tian's expression changed slightly. Right then, a ball of pure white flame spewed out from Su Zimo's palm and engulfed Li Tian's fist instantly. Southern Mingli fire. That was a fire-dermic formulation imparted by the vermilion bird's sacred soul. Ah! Li Tian shrieked. In the blink of an eye, his fist was burned beyond recognition by the southern Mingli fire, revealing the white bones beneath. What was even more frightening was that the southern Mingli fire did not extinguish even after touching his bloodline. Instead, it extended along his wrist and burned brighter and brighter. Li Tian lost the initiative and was severely injured, retreating hurriedly. Like a shadow, Su Zimo strode forward and released the great Chaos Essence palm to suppress Li Tian without giving him any chance to catch his breath. Li Tian could not defend against it at all. Poof! Li Tian's body froze and his head was smashed by Su Zimo's palm. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. In less than 10 moves, the number 1 of the hunting ranking, Li Tian, was killed by Su Zimo's palm. Jianghu and the others were slightly shocked. Even Li Tian did not gain any advantage in melee combat. If it was a one-on-one fight, they might not be Su Zimo's match either. This person sure is capable. Yun Ting rubbed his palms and praised, seemingly moved. Fang Xian, what do you think? On the other side, Old Man Gu asked. Fang Xian said, Li Tian was careless. Although the flames were powerful, they would have been of no threat if he had dodged them. As for this Su Zimo, he has a reckless personality and is too impulsive. There's nothing to fear. Although it's satisfying to kill, he has to flee everywhere in the Emperor's tomb now. Su Zimo, to think that I would have underestimated you. The skinny old man looked at Li Tian's corpse and said slowly, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The moment the skinny old man said that, his aura changed and his glabella shone with a tremendous might. Earth Immortal. The crowd exclaimed. No, he's not an Earth Immortal. His cultivation realm is still at the Black Essence realm, but his essence spirit cultivation is already at the Earth Essence realm. The surrounding cultivators recognized it quickly. Yun Ting did not seem surprised at all. There's naturally a reason why the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom allowed the 2 of them to enter the Emperor's tomb as commanders. Su Zimo is still a little reckless. That lad won't be able to defend against the release of an Earth Immortal level Essence Spirit secret skill. Old Man Gu coughed. Su Zimo is already a dead man. The skinny old man released his consciousness and released the might of an Earth Immortal. Sweeping his gaze across Su Zimo and the others, he said slowly, since His Highness Yuanzhua allowed the 2 of us in, we naturally have trump cards that can control your lives. All of you watch and learn. What happens to Su Zimo will be the outcome of anyone who challenges the might of an immortal kingdom. With that said, the skinny old man channeled his spirit consciousness and was prepared to release an essence spirit secret skill to kill Su Zimo. However, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo had vanished. Earlier on he was looking at Su Zimo. However, in the blink of an eye, the latter vanished from the spot. You talk too much. Right then, an indifferent voice sounded in his ears. The next moment, the skinny old man felt a sharp pain in his mind and lost consciousness before long. Right from the beginning he could not release his essence spirit secret skill. Behind him, Su Zimo was standing and had just retracted his finger. There was a hole behind the skinny old man's head that was filled with blood. A single finger pierced the skinny old man's skull and shattered his essence spirit. Even before his death, the skinny old man could not understand why Su Zimo would appear behind him. The other cultivators were shocked. Nobody expected Su Zimo to dare to attack an exalted immortal who served the prince of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. More than that, no one expected Su Zimo to be so decisive and kill the skinny old man with a single strike without hesitation. Chapter 1979 Sword Art. Chapter 1979, Sword Art. The skinny old man was backed by Prince Yuanzhua and the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Nobody could challenge the might of an immortal kingdom. Many cultivators did not even dare to think about it, let alone kill so decisively. How dare you? A cultivator pointed at Su Zimo with a shocked expression. Poof. Right then, another strange sound came from the side. Everyone looked over and could not help but gasp. Not far away, a half-moon fingernail scar appeared on the fat old man's glabella and a scarlet blood scar gradually seeped out. The fat old man's gaze dimmed and his life force deteriorated rapidly. He could no longer survive. It was a symbol of the annihilation of one's essence spirit. Who did it? Many cultivators were shocked and retreated, leaving only the corpses of the fat and skinny old men on the spot. Everyone's attention was on Su Zimo earlier on and they were certain that he did not attack after killing the skinny old man. Then who killed this person? That was the scary part. Someone had died in front of everyone without anyone noticing who it was. Su Zimo's expression was calm. Others might not have noticed it but he could. Among everyone present, Tang Zi was the only one who could kill the fat old man without anyone knowing. Tang Zi's timing was almost perfect and flawless. At that time, the skinny old man was killed by Su Zimo and caused an uproar. Almost everyone's attention was on Su Zimo. The fat old man had not expected that there would be another person who would dare attack him right beside him. Without any unnecessary movements, it was also a one-hit kill. Even till his death, the fat old man did not see who attacked. Actually, even if he did not die and successfully released his essence spirit secret skill, he would not be a threat to Su Zimo. Su Zimo's essence spirit had long broken through to the earth essence realm and surpassed the two of them. Furthermore, his essence spirit was protected by the creation lotus platform and could not be injured unless one's cultivation realm was much higher. Of course, Tang Zi's attack saved him some trouble. Although there were many cultivators present, there were few who truly saw what happened. Not far away, Yunting smiled. That man and woman sure are bold. They probably won't be able to live for long after killing the servants of Prince Yuanzhua. Since Prince Yuanzhua isn't here, he shouldn't know about this, right? A cultivator was puzzled. Yunting said, there's no need for Prince Yuanzhua to attack. These two old men represent the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and that's the only thing the other sects and factions are wary of. Now that the two of them are dead, the other factions no longer have any reservations. In fact, they can even kill the two of them and snatch the 7 glow immortal ginseng with the excuse of purging traitors for the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Right then, Fang Xian suddenly declared from the other side, the person who killed the exalted immortal of the Immortal Kingdom was the purple-robed woman among you. Su Zimo frowned slightly and looked at Fang Xian. Fang Xian was fearless and raised his head slightly with a provocative smile. He even extended his palm and slashed horizontally across his throat, making a beheading gesture. Tang Zi glanced at Fang Xian as well but retracted her gaze quickly. Even if she had killing intent or thoughts, she would not reveal them. It was you. Jianghu and the others retreated and distanced themselves from Tang Zi with wary expressions. Since her tracks were exposed, Tang Zi no longer hid. Without saying anything, she walked straight to the fat old man's corpse and removed his storage bag to search. At the same time, Su Zimo took the skinny old man's storage bag and searched it. Before long, he found a teleportation talisman in the skinny old man's storage bag. He put away the talisman and looked at Tang Zi at the same time. Tang Zi happened to look over as well. The two of them exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. Both of them had almost the same thoughts. The reason why they searched the storage bags of the fat and skinny old men was not for any treasures, but for a way to leave the emperor's tomb. The fat and skinny old men had once said that they were the only ones with a way to leave the emperor's tomb. The greatest possibility was a teleportation talisman. Now that both of them had the teleportation talismans, it was equivalent to them taking the initiative. At the very least, they would not be trapped to death in the emperor's tomb. Hand it over. When Jianghu and the others saw Su Zimo and Tang Zi's actions, they pondered for a moment and understood the reason. Everyone went forward and surrounded Su Zimo and Tang Zi. What are you guys doing? Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings and asked indifferently. Jianghu said coldly, leave the 7 glow immortal ginseng and teleportation talisman behind. Su Zimo ignored Jianghu's threat. If you want to leave the emperor's tomb, stay by my side. At that time I'll naturally take you guys away. You guys killed an exalted immortal of the Immortal Kingdom and are bound to die. Yet you want to lead us? Su Zimo, the reason why you were able to kill the exalted immortal of the Immortal Kingdom earlier on was because you caught him off guard. All of us killed our way out of the 10 absolute hell. Do you think we're afraid of you? The remaining dozens of cultivators surrounded Su Zimo and Tang Zi with murderous auras. Off guard. Su Zimo smiled and shook his head at the person who spoke. You're still too naive. If I want to kill you, you won't be able to stop me even if I tell you openly. How arrogant. The person was enraged and attacked first. He conjured a lesser divine power each with both hands and released them completely, shouting, Su Zimo, die. That person's two lesser divine powers were offensive divine powers and he did not hold back at all. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he moved and floated towards that person. At the same time he flicked his finger. Chi. Sword chi tore through the air and two white sword chi arrived instantly, piercing the two lesser divine powers condensed in the person's palm. By the time that person was released, there were only two balls of heaven and earth essence chi left without any damage. Far away Yunting's eyes lit up when he saw the two sword chi. His body trembled as he murmured softly, the aura of those two sword chi. Your Highness, what's wrong? Another cultivator whispered, although the killing intent of the two sword chi is strong, they can't compare to your Highness's sword chi. Ha 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 ha. Yunting could not help but rear his head in laughter with a delighted expression. The heavens are truly on my side. This trip was not wasted. In the eyes of others, Su Zimo's two sword chi merely had a strong killing intent and were extremely powerful. However, Yunting knew that the two sword chi came from the same origin as the sword chi he cultivated. What he cultivated was one of the three famous sword arts of the upper world, the human slaying sword art. The other two sword arts were heaven slaying and earth slaying. Among the three sword arts, the human slaying sword art was the strongest. At its peak, it could condense supreme divine powers that could overturn the world. The three sword arts came from the sword world. It was said that if one comprehended all three sword arts and mastered them, they would have a chance to condense a supreme divine power of the sword Tao that was unprecedented and irreplaceable. Chapter 1980 Chaotic Battle. Chapter 1980 Chaotic Battle. Two heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth and destroyed the lesser divine powers conjured by the cultivator with ease. You're far from being able to take my life. Su Zimo's tone was calm and his movement technique was extremely fast. Almost following the sword chi, he arrived instantly and slapped the cultivator on the head. Bang. The person shuddered and his gaze froze. Although he did not seem injured on the surface, his mind was already shattered by Su Zimo's palm and his essence spirit was destroyed. It was as Su Zimo had said before he attacked. Even if he wanted to kill them openly, they could not stop him. Jianghu and the others fought their way out of the 10 absolute hell while Su Zimo was completely nameless on the hunting ranking. Therefore, deep in their hearts, everyone did not take Su Zimo seriously. After Su Zimo killed the three of them, the other cultivators did not retreat at all. Instead, their courage was triggered and they swarmed forward under Jianghu's orders. The combined attack of dozens of grade 9 black immortals was quite powerful. All sorts of lesser divine powers, immortal arts and secret skills were formed and essence chi surged. Poof! A thunderbolt flashed in the crowd. One of them had just leaped up when his body stiffened and a hole as thick as an arm appeared on his chest. It was charred and emitted green smoke. That person's chest was pierced by the power of thunder. Ah! The person let out a tragic cry and fell. Even if his essence spirit was not destroyed, his body was severely injured and his life force was devastated. He would not be able to last long with his remaining essence spirit. Behind him, Tang Zi's figure flashed past. A cultivator wanted to track down Tang Zi but realized that he could not. His spirit consciousness could not lock onto Tang Zi's location at all. Even Su Zimo's earth immortal spirit consciousness could not lock onto Tang Zi. Back when the two of them fought in the cave, the main reason why Su Zimo was able to gain the upper hand and restrain Tang Zi was because of his spirit perception and the true Dragon 9 flashes. Tiske. Tsk. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he flicked his finger gently. 100 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth and splattered everywhere with killing intent. He was already at the level 9 Black Essence realm. With the Green Lotus true body, even at the same cultivation realm, his essence chi was many times purer than other cultivators. Therefore, the killing power of a single sword chi could dispel a divine power or secret skill. If Su Zimo were to release thousands of heaven-slaying sword chi, it would be apocalyptic and not many cultivators around the lake would survive. Far away Yunting nodded slightly when he saw that. The heaven-slaying sword art is not wasted in his hands. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Indeed, it's extraordinary. A cultivator behind Yun Ting said with a smile, no matter how strong that person cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art, he can't compare to your highness's human-slaying sword art. That's for sure. Yun Ting had a proud expression. Notwithstanding the heaven-slaying sword art, even if this person possesses the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts, he won't be able to deal with the edge of my human-slaying sword art. There's no need to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Leave it to us. Another person said in a deep voice, when he's exhausted, we'll head forward and definitely capture him alive to hand over to your highness. There's no need. Yun Ting said indifferently, I'll snatch the heaven-slaying sword art personally. Your highness, he's just a lowlife. Why are you? Before the person could finish, he was interrupted by Yun Ting. What status am I of? Yun Ting glared at the person. If I want the heaven-slaying sword art, I would naturally attack openly. I won't do things as despicable as taking advantage of the situation or bullying with numbers. The other cultivators lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. On the other side, in the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, Fang Xian's battle intent surged and he asked in a deep voice, seemingly unable to hold it in, Exalted Immortal, let me attack. I'll definitely be able to kill this person with a thunderous might and retrieve the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Hold on, there's no need to hurry. Old Man Gu said, this lad has some tricks up his sleeves. These dozens of cultivators are not his match. You'll only have a good chance of winning after he exhausts himself for a while. Fang Xian took a deep breath and continued watching. On the battlefield, Su Zimo released the heaven-slaying sword art and dispelled all sorts of divine powers and secret skills with a single flick. Relying on heavenly feet and boundless golden light, he shuttled through the crowd with ease. Every single punch and kick that seemed simple contained a terrifying burst power. Even without using his bloodline, the Green Lotus true body alone could take on Khanate black-grade dermic treasures head-on. Cultivators could not use dermic treasures and weapons in the Emperor's tomb. However, Su Zimo was a human-shaped Khanate black-grade dermic treasure. Who could defend against him? Bang, bang, bang. As though he was taking a leisure stroll, Su Zimo charged left and right and no one could stop him. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the dozens of grade 9 black immortals were killed by him. A small half of them died in the chaos and did not even know who killed them. Although this was the first time that Su Zimo and Tang Zi had truly joined forces, they had great chemistry. Su Zimo fought against dozens of cultivators head-on. On the other hand, Tang Zi relied on her unpredictable movement and concealment techniques to blend into the crowd. She appeared occasionally and rarely attacked. However, every single attack would result in the death of a cultivator. The two of them were not on the hunting ranking. But now, almost all the cultivators on the hunting ranking were killed. The remaining few people finally felt fear and retreated. However, at that moment, the cultivators of the many sects and factions that were initially watching surged over like a tide. Most of them were from small sects and factions. Previously, the fat and skinny old men were from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and could be considered as exalted immortals. No matter how bold they were, they would not dare to attack and were wary. But now that the fat and skinny old men were dead, Su Zimo and the others were merely black immortals of the lower worlds. Furthermore, they were the murderers of the fat and skinny old men. With that, many cultivators now had an excuse to swarm forward so that they could seize the 7 glow immortal ginseng in the chaos. Far away, Old Man Gu laughed oddly. With so many people charging forward, it'll be difficult for Su Zimo to escape unscathed even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms. Fang Xian, prepare yourself. Wait for my orders to attack at any moment. Understood. Fang Xian replied in a deep voice. On the other side, the cultivators of the Zishan Immortal Kingdom frowned. Your Highness, Su Zimo is most likely doomed. Yun Ting clasped his hands behind his back in silence. On the battlefield, Su Zimo was fearless against the cultivators charging over from all directions. In fact, there was not even a single ripple in his eyes. Hey, let's retreat first. We can't take them head-on. Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. You leave first. Be careful. Su Zimo replied. If the cultivators outside were all top-tier black immortals without any restrictions and were at their peak combat strength, he might be wary of some dermic treasures or trump cards. However, in the Emperor's tomb, Su Zimo was confident that he could sweep through everything with his body, immortal arts and divine powers. Furthermore, the environment of the Emperor's tomb was complicated and every single step was filled with killing intent. If they encountered some unknown living beings in the Emperor's tomb while retreating, they might encounter danger instead. Chapter 1981, Silence in the World. Chapter 1981, Silence in the World. Hand over the immortal ginseng. An utmost treasure like that is not something you can keep for yourself. Some cultivators shouted without concealing their motives. Many cultivators swarmed over with an aggressive aura. Even if they could not use any dermic treasures or weapons, the descent of many divine powers and secret skills at the same time was earth-shaking and terrifying. Ah! A sharp howl suddenly sounded in the crowd. It was extremely ear-piercing and seemed like it could tear through the eardrums of many cultivators. It was the immortal whale sound. Tang Zi did not leave. The cultivators around Tang Zi felt their bodies tremble and their ears hurt as arrows of blood spewed out. Even cultivators who were slightly further away were shocked. The divine powers and secret skills they had just conjured became unstable and swayed slightly. Legend has it that the bloodline of the taboo Kunpeng flowed through the immortal whale's body and it was massive. Once it released its whale sound, it would produce an extremely terrifying lethality. Tang Zi stood in midair and howled into the skies. It was as though a gigantic immortal whale had appeared above her head and was swimming in the tides, slapping the surface of the water and creating massive waves with a series of whale sounds. The immortal whale sound seemed to have materialized and spread in all directions with Tang Zi as the center. Roar! Right then, another strange roar sounded not far away with a mighty might, as though a myriad of elephants were trumpeting at the same time. Yun Ting glanced sideways. Far away, a black-robed man from the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom leaped up. His black hair danced as he roared in Tang Zi's direction. It was Fang Xian. Beneath Fang Xian's feet, a myriad of gigantic elephants appeared vaguely. Swinging their trunks, they stabbed their gigantic tusks into the air and roared into the skies. The immortal whale was the overlord of the sea. However, the divine elephant was a god of the land. The immortal whale sound and the myriad elephant roar, two sound domain secret skills, collided fiercely in midair. Neither side was willing to back down. It was hard to tell who was stronger between the two sound domain secret skills. However, because of Fang Xian's attack, the cultivators who were initially surrounding Su Zimo were invigorated and freed from the pain of the immortal whale sound. Interesting. Initially, Yun Ting was watching from afar and had no intention of attacking. However, at that moment, the collision of the two sound domain secret skills caused his bloodline to stir and could not calm down. To think that I would encounter some decent opponents in the Black Essence realm? Yun Ting burst into laughter and conjured his sword finger, slashing down in the direction of the battlefield. He shouted 3 times in succession, "Break! Break! Break!" Yun Ting's voice was much weaker compared to the sound of the immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar. However, his 3 shouts condensed 3 swords in midair that were sharp and murderous. Sword condensation using sound. His talent in the Tao of the sword was truly shocking and unimaginable. Even Fang Xian had a grim expression and retracted the contempt in his eyes. Initially he did not take Yun Ting seriously. However, it was only now that he realized that this was an extremely powerful opponent. The 3 sound swords tore through the air and descended from the skies without fear of the clash between the immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar. Shing. It was as though a cloth had been torn by a sharp weapon. The immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar were split cleanly into 2 by Yun Ting's 3 sound swords. A ferocious glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Initially, he had no intention of using the Dragon Roar secret skill. That was one of his trump cards. He would not use it unless he had no other choice. However, at that moment, the 3 sound domain secret skills descended at the same time and collided in his ears, causing the Green Lotus bloodline in his body to boil fervently. If he continued, his Green Lotus bloodline would be exposed. Furthermore, in the depths of Su Zimo's heart, there was a hint of pride as well. He wanted to fight against all the paragons in the world. "All of you, get lost," Su Zimo said slowly. At the last word, he released the dermic formulation of the Dragon Roar secret skill. Instantly the world shook. A divine dragon shimmering with green scales appeared beside Su Zimo. Its horns were towering and its might was terrifying as it coiled upwards and roared into the skies. The divine dragon was lifelike. When it roared, its whiskers danced and the scales on its body exploded slightly, causing its entire body to expand. The dragon roar was way too terrifying, as though it contained a supreme will. The immortal whale in midair suddenly leaped into the sea and vanished. Under Su Zimo's control, the dragon roar secret skill had the least impact on Tang Zi. As for the myriad of gigantic elephants beneath Fang Xian's feet, they shattered and dissipated into the world under the shock of the dragon roar. Fang Xian's body swayed slightly but stabilized quickly. The 3 sound swords lasted for a little longer but shattered into nothingness as well. The dragon roar secret skill was fused with many secret skills, including Thunderclap Kill, the sound of the dragon phoenix and the roar of the azure dragon. Each of those sound domain secret skills individually was enough to sweep through anyone of the same cultivation realm. One could naturally imagine how terrifying the combined power of those secret skills was. When the dragon roar secret skill was released, the entire world went silent. Dragon roar technique. Yunting did not move at all. He narrowed his eyes and murmured. But soon Yunting shook his head again. Something's not right. This sound domain secret skill seems to be fused with other dermic formulations. There's also the power of thunder. Be it Fang Xian or Yunting, they were far away to begin with. Coupled with their powerful blood qi and physique, Su Zimo's dragon roar secret skill had almost no effect on them. However, on the battlefield, many cultivators who attacked Su Zimo suffered. First, they endured the baptism of the immortal whale sound. Immediately after, they endured the impact of the myriad elephant roar. Thereafter, it was Yunting's 3 sound swords. Most of the cultivators on the battlefield could no longer hold out against the descent of the 3 sound domain secret skills. The dragon roar secret skill was even more terrifying. The moment it was released, the cultivators closest to Su Zimo exploded and died on the spot. The bodies and bloodlines of those cultivators were severely injured by the 3 sound domain secret skills. If they retreated in time, they might be able to recover. However, the dragon roar secret skill destroyed them like a violent storm. Some cultivators further away fell from midair as well. Some of them fell limply to the ground with bloodied faces in a menacing manner, almost destroyed by the power of the dragon roar secret skill. Before the divine powers and secret skills in midair descended, they were destroyed by the 4 sound domain secret skills. Those who could enter the Emperor's tomb were carefully selected top experts of the Black Essence realm. However, when they truly fought, many cultivators realized that even though they were all grade 9 Black Immortals, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Fang Xian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit as he strode towards Su Zimo. 4 cultivators, 3 men and a woman, surrounded Su Zimo from 4 directions as well. There were not many cultivators with combat strength after the 4 sound domain secret skills. It was clear how strong the 3 men and 1 woman were. Be careful, those are people from the 4 immortal sects. Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Chapter 1982 Informant, Die. Chapter 1982, Informant, Die. Su Zimo did not know much about the 4 immortal sects and merely heard about them for the first time in the Battle of the Dragon Abyss Star. In the heavenly world, sects were divided into 3 grades: Black, Earth and Heaven. Under normal circumstances, those who ascended from the lower worlds did not even have the chance to enter Black grade sections. As for the 4 immortal sects, they were Heaven grade sects of Divine Firmament mainland, and one could imagine their strength. Among the 3 men, one of them was bald with a fat head and ears like a monk. Another had dark skin, a tall figure and short hair, resembling a walking iron tower. The third was a middle-aged man with a Dao crown on his head. His sleeves fluttered and he was dark and calm. The woman wore a blue dress and her lips were scarlet with a hint of purple. She looked a little terrifying. The fact that the 4 of them could withstand the impact of the 4 sound domain secret skills was proof of their strength. Although Su Zimo was confident that he could overwhelm opponents of the same level, he did not dare to be careless. With a long howl, his aura intensified. On the other side, a flustered figure was staggering towards Yunting. It was Jianghu who had escaped death. The sound domain secret skills of Tang Zi, Fang Xian and Yunting were already the limit of what he could endure. When Su Zimo released his Dragon Roar secret skill, the bloodline within his body reversed. His organs vibrated and he almost died on the spot. Your Highness, save me. Although Jianghu did not know Yunting, he recognized the badge on Yunting's body. That was an item that only the descendants of the royal family of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom were qualified to wear. Jianghu shouted for help before he even reached Yunting. Yunting glanced at Jianghu indifferently. He ignored you guys completely. If you guys had not provoked him, you would not have gotten yourselves killed. Your Highness, please show mercy. He is ruthless without any reservations and even dared to kill the exalted immortals who served Prince Yuanzhua. What else can he not do? With an indignant expression, Jianghu said hatefully, when I return to the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, I'll definitely report this matter to Prince Yuanzhua. Yunting sneered and attacked without warning. Even if Jianghu was in his peak condition, he would not be able to defend against Yunting's attack, let alone the fact that he was severely injured. Your Highness, you. Jianghu was lifted by the back of his neck by Yunting and hovered in midair like a chicken that was caught. He had a panicked expression and could not struggle at all. Yunting said indifferently, I hate informers the most in my life. You're not worthy of using a sword. The moment he said that, Yunting closed two fingers and slashed down. A bloodied head was severed by Yunting's fingers. His sword finger was even sharper than a true sword. On the other side, the people of the four immortal sects had already begun fighting Su Zimo. The bald monk was the first to arrive and roared in laughter. Patron, I'm here to purify you into the afterlife. He raised his arms and they shone as though they were covered by a thick layer of gold foil, smashing towards Su Zimo. His arms were like two thick and tough rods with immense strength and incomparable ferocity. Immediately after, the Iron Tower man approached as well. His body was upright and he was half a body taller than Su Zimo. Ha! The Iron Tower man's shout sounded like thunder in one's ears. He extended his arm and clenched it into a fist, punching down at Su Zimo's head. The Iron Tower man clenched his fists like a black hammer that was defined and filled with a metallic luster. Although the body immobilization technique was common, everyone's essence spirit was different in terms of purity, cultivation realm and strength. The effects produced were completely different. Su Zimo's essence spirit had long reached the earth essence realm and was a major cultivation realm above his peers. Therefore, the body immobilization technique had no effect on him when used by others. That was the case even if the middle-aged Taoist was from one of the four immortal sections. However, the middle-aged Taoist still had a trump card. The moment he released the body immobilization technique, his two wide sleeves arrived instantly and wrapped around Su Zimo a few times. The body immobilization technique was only the first move and the killing move was later on. Although the blue-dressed woman was the slowest to attack, the fingernails on her fingers were purple and gave off a foul stench. Poison. The blue-dressed woman extended her sharp fingernails and grabbed towards Su Zimo like 10 poisonous swords. The experts of the four immortal sects released terrifying attacks at almost the same time. Although the four of them did not know each other and this was their first time joining forces, their coordination was perfect. This was the sort of chemistry between top-tier experts. When he saw that, Yunting nodded slightly and said softly, although the four of them are only servants of the four immortal sects, their methods are indeed not weak. I'm probably the only one who can defend against an attack as such. On the battlefield. Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat when she saw that. Given her eyesight, she could naturally tell how terrifying the combined forces of the experts of the four immortal sects were. At the very least, if she was in Su Zimo's position, it would be difficult for her to escape unscathed. In a flash, Tang Zi retracted her figure and sneaked towards the middle-aged Taoist. As long as she could kill one of them, it would be much easier to deal with the remaining three. Hee, where are you going? Right then, a sneer sounded from the side. Immediately after, Tang Zi felt a strong gust of wind that even hurt her ears. What was even more frightening was that this person's attack sealed all of Tang Zi's escape routes. Expert. Tang Zi did not dare to be careless and hurriedly stopped to avoid the other party's killing move and focused her gaze. A black-robed man blocked her path. It was Fang Xian of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom. Tang Zi frowned slightly. If the two of them were to fight head-on, it would be difficult to determine the victor within a short period of time. That single delay caused Su Zimo on the other side of the battlefield to fall into the torrential attacks of the four experts. With a burning gaze, Su Zimo took a deep breath and his chest puffed up. It was as though he had transformed into an anaconda that wanted to devour the sun and moon. This was a secret skill from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Shing. Instantly, Su Zimo's sleeves were ripped apart, turning into countless pieces of cloth that fell to the ground. The middle-aged Taoist was stunned. His move had killed countless paragons. To think that it would be dispelled so easily today. Get lost. A tremendous amount of essence qi accumulated in Su Zimo's chest suddenly burst forth as he exhaled. Su Zimo released the great chaos essence palm with his left hand and crushed towards the bald monk's arms like a gigantic millstone. At the same time, he swiped his right hand across his chest and clenched it into a fist. His flesh expanded and he conjured a gigantic seal that smashed towards the Iron Tower man's iron fist. Boom. With a loud bang, the bald monk's expression changed starkly as he retreated. The gold foil on his arms was already shattered by the great chaos essence palm. Bang. Fists collided, flesh met and bones ground. Before long, a flush appeared on the Iron Tower man's face. Ah! The Iron Tower man growled deeply with a pained expression and staggered 3 steps back. Chapter 1983 Clues of the Jade Talisman. Chapter 1983 Clues of the Jade Talisman. Every single step the Iron Tower man took left a deep footprint on the ground. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the experts of the 4 immortal sects retreated. At the same time, the blue-dressed woman's killing move descended. Su Zimo did not turn back at all. As though he had eyes behind him, he closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art, waving it behind him. Chi. After condensing the heaven-slaying sword art, at least 100 sword chi spewed out at the same time and formed a sword. Sensing the terror of the sword, the blue-dressed woman's expression changed starkly as she stopped in her tracks and retreated. She wanted to stop, but she was still a step too late. Clang. Clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing echoed as the blue-dressed woman's 10 fingernails were snapped by the heaven-slaying sword chi. Pieces of fingernails scattered on the ground with a purplish-green poisonous glow. Against the encirclement of the experts of the 4 immortal sects, Su Zimo counterattacked domineeringly and forced all 4 of them back. On the other side, Tang Zi, who was already fighting Fang Xian, was temporarily relieved. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo burst into laughter and looked down at the 4 of them. Not bad. You guys are quite capable to be able to escape from my hands unscathed. How arrogant. The middle-aged Taoist's expression darkened as he hollered. However, the other 3 remained silent with ugly expressions. Su Zimo's words were indeed extremely piercing and arrogant. However, the 3 of them knew that Su Zimo was not lying at all. The moment the bald monk collided with the great chaos essence palm, he sensed that something was amiss and retreated in time so he was not injured. If he had retreated slightly slower, both his arms might have been ground into a pulp by the great chaos essence palm. The reason why the Iron Tower man was able to withstand Su Zimo's punch was because he had made use of a secret skill to redirect his opponent's attack into the ground through his body. That was the reason why his 3 steps left such deep footprints on the ground. It was even more dangerous for the blue-dressed woman. She specialized in the Tao of poison, and the power of her body and bloodline was far inferior to the bald monk and the Iron Tower man, let alone Su Zimo. If she had dodged slower earlier on, both her arms would have been severed by the heaven-slaying sword chi. The 4 of them came from the 4 immortal sects and had the lowest status in the sect. However, cultivators who could enter the immortal sects should be far superior to their peers even if they were the most inferior servants. To think that the 4 of them would encounter such a ruthless person in the Emperor's tomb. On the other side, Yun Ting, who was watching the battle, had a conflicted expression. Earlier on, he merely said that he could resolve the encirclement of the 4 of them. To think that not only did Su Zimo resolve it, he even counterattacked forcefully and nearly injured the experts of the 4 immortal sects. On the other side, Tang Zi and Fang Xian fought continuously and it was difficult to determine the victor. Although Tang Zi cultivated the Tao of assassination, her physique and bloodline were extraordinary and her foundation was extremely firm. Even if she were to fight against paragons and monster incarnates head-on, she would not be disadvantaged at all. The more Fang Xian fought, the more alarmed he became. He ascended after the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and was invincible in the lower worlds. Even in the upper world, he had not encountered any opponents. Initially, in his eyes, Yun Ting, Su Zimo and the experts of the 4 immortal sects might be the only ones who could threaten him. He did not take Tang Zi seriously at all. To think that this seemingly ordinary woman would be so troublesome and terrifying. Her attacks were unpredictable and they were all killing moves. There were even a few times when he was almost severely injured. Where did this person come from? Fang Xian cursed internally. Right then, a jade-green light burst forth from the distant horizon and soared into the skies. However, it disappeared quickly. Many cultivators were shocked and fell into deep thought. Su Zimo saw the green light as well. Could it be the Jade Talisman? None of them had any clues about the Jade Talisman. The sudden appearance of the green light caused everyone to make guesses. After a brief silence, cultivators moved and sped in the direction of the Jade Talisman. Your Highness, what about us? A cultivator of the Zishan Immortal Kingdom asked softly. Let's take a look over there first. I'm bent on getting my hands on both the Jade Talisman and Heaven-Slaying Sword Art. Yun Ting pondered for a moment with a deep gaze. Let's find the Jade Talisman first. We won't lose track of Su Zimo. Pausing for a moment, he smiled. In my judgment, apart from me, no one in the Emperor's tomb can stop him. Your Highness, you seem to think highly of him? Someone behind Yun Ting could tell what he was implying. Yun Ting nodded slightly. This person is very talented and cultivated the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art. We can be considered to be fated. However, he ascended from the lower worlds and it's difficult for him to stand out in the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. The only chance for him to make his mark in the Nine Firmament is if he follows me. The cultivator smiled. Your Highness, in the upper world, there's almost no one else who treats cultivators of the lower worlds equally like you. It's his fortune if he can be recruited by you. Yun Ting shook his head and smiled. Not necessarily. Anyone with such talent and combat strength is a monster incarnate. They're prideful and difficult to recruit. I have to defeat him and convince him before I can take him under my wing. With that said, Yun Ting glanced at Su Zimo again and led the many cultivators of the Zishan Immortal Kingdom in the direction of the green light. Fang Xian, let's ignore that woman and look for the Jade Talisman first. We can't let anyone seize the initiative. The voice of Old Man Gu sounded in Fang Xian's mind. Bang. On the battlefield, Fang Xian clashed head-on with Tang Zi and retreated. Waving the lightning on his fist, he sneered, I'm not playing with you anymore. We'll fight again next time. You'll die the next time? Tang Zi said indifferently. Haha. Fang Xian burst into laughter. You want to kill me? You're far from that. The moment he said that, Fang Xian turned and sped back to Old Man Ji's side and left with everyone from the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom. The experts of the four immortal sects who were initially confronting Su Zimo wanted to retreat as well. The mission given to them by the sect was to search for the Jade Talisman, not the 7 glow immortal Ginseng. If they continued to fight with Su Zimo here and lost sight of the big picture because of this, they would be punished when they returned even if they could get their hands on the 7 glow immortal Ginseng. At that thought, the experts of the four immortal sects exchanged glances and retreated at the same time, leaving with the other cultivators of the sect. Tang Zi came to Su Zimo's side. There were more than 100 people from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom who entered the Emperor's tomb and they were the only ones left. Seems like everyone has the same goal, the Jade Talisman. Su Zimo murmured softly. Tang Zi nodded in silent agreement. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. I wonder what's the origin and secret of this Jade Talisman to alarm so many sects and factions. In the eyes of these sects and factions, it's even more important than the 7 glow immortal Ginseng. Tang Zi said, I guess only someone of Yun Ting's status can know such a secret. Let's go take a look too. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Even without the arrangements of Prince Yuanzhua, he wanted to see what the Jade Talisman looked like and what secrets it hid. Tang Zi did not say anything and merely followed behind Su Zimo silently. Chapter 1984 Ruined Palace. Chapter 1984 Ruined Palace. Su Zimo and Tang Zi sped along the tracks of many cultivators. After walking for about half a day, they caught sight of a massive building at the horizon ahead. It looked like a palace. Although it was dilapidated, one could still sense its grandeur from afar. There were even some cultivators lingering around the palace, as though they were searching for something. Most of the cultivators had already entered the hall. Su Zimo and Tang Zi arrived before the palace and took a rough look but could not make out anything. The two of them did not waste time outside and entered the palace. In front of them was a spacious square paved with green stones. There were a few stone paths that separated the medicinal fields. However, there were no longer any immortal herbs in the medicinal fields, only some withered leaves. Even the soil in the medicinal fields was corroded by the curse of the emperor's tomb and shone with a strange green color. The square was huge, and even with Su Zimo's eyesight, he could not see the borders. The two of them passed through the medicinal fields along the stone paths and continued forward. Along the way they encountered some cultivators walking around the square. This palace was probably one of the temporary residences of the immortal emperor back then. I wonder if there are any treasures? There are definitely treasures. Unfortunately, they were corroded by the curse here for countless years and are now crippled. I heard that the side halls on the left and right contain some rare treasures, elixirs, divine weapons and dermic treasures. Unfortunately, none of them can be used. If that wasn't the case, even every single blade of grass in this palace would be an incredible treasure. Since we can't enter the main hall for the time being, let's continue searching. If we're lucky and find any treasures, we'll make a killing. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he caught faint whispers around the square. The cultivators outside the palace were probably trying their luck searching for treasures as well. However, he did not know why those people said that they could not enter the main hall for the time being. The two of them continued forward, and before long they crossed the entire square. At the end of the square stood the main hall of the palace. Thousands of cultivators were gathered in front of the hall, staring at the door of the main hall. Some of them were even discussing softly. The two of them went forward to take a look and saw that the ground at the entrance of the hall was etched with dense and complicated patterns that shone faintly. "It's a formation," Tang Zi whispered. Su Zimo nodded and stared at the formation in front of the main hall for a while, feeling dizzy. The formation was way too complicated and he could not dispel it given his attainments in formations. However, at that moment, a young man stood at the edge of the formation in front of the main hall. The person had a confident expression and was in high spirits. From time to time he would stop and ponder or speed up and flick his finger, sending essence chi spirit lights into the formation. This was the young prince of the Zishen Immortal Kingdom, Yun Ting. Each time Yun Ting made a move, the formation would tremble slightly and shine. Furthermore, the light of the formation was clearly dimming. Yun Ting was dispelling the formation. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo could sense that Yun Ting was very strong. In fact, he could even sense a hint of danger from that person. To be able to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm at more than 200 years old, even if this person had a noble status and unlimited resources, his talent was truly terrifying. What was even more frightening was that this person's attainments in array formations were so deep as well. There was a limit to one's strength. Even if one cultivated wholeheartedly for more than 200 years, he might not be able to reach the level 9 Black Essence realm. However, this person could even divert attention to cultivate array formations. Why do we have to enter through the main entrance of the main hall? Are there no other entrances? The main hall is dilapidated and on the verge of collapse. I'm afraid it won't even be able to withstand a single punch from me. A cultivator in the crowd muttered. Foo-foo. Immediately, a scoff sounded from the side. You can try going up. The main hall is surrounded by restrictions and you'll definitely die if you barge in. Do you see those corpses? That is what will happen. The first person was stunned and did not dare to say anything more. Dispelling formations takes a huge toll on one's essence spirit. This prince sure is bold. He's not afraid of running out of energy and encountering danger. What status is he of? Almost everyone in the Emperor's tomb is of a lowly status. Who would dare to lay a hand on him? Furthermore, even if his essence spirit takes a huge toll, he's probably still invincible among his peers. In the crowd, Fang Xian watched everything coldly and smirked. That person is young after all and is way too conceited. He doesn't know how to hold back. Su Zimo watched for a while before exiting the crowd. Where are you going? Tang Zi asked. Su Zimo said, It'll be difficult to dispel this formation within a short period of time. I intend to explore the side halls on both sides. I'm not going. Tang Zi did not move. She still wanted to rush into the main hall right away and seize the initiative when the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo nodded and turned towards a side hall. There were no restrictions in the side hall. The door was open and it was a mess inside. It was clear that many cultivators had overturned it. Initially, there were many divine weapons and dermic treasures placed in the side hall. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, bells, cauldrons, mirrors, ordinary weapons and dermic treasures of different races. Everything was present. However, at that moment, most of the divine weapons and dermic treasures were already strewn everywhere. To be precise, those were no longer divine weapons or dermic treasures. Under the corrosion of the curse of the Emperor's tomb, the original divine weapons and dermic treasures had long turned into scrap metal. In fact, the grades of those divine weapons and dermic treasures were not too high. At the very least, they were not at the level of sentient dermic treasures. That was because there was no feedback from the hell suppression tripod that was still refining the molten metal within. There were still some cultivators lingering in the side hall, wanting to search for some treasures that were missed. In fact, a few cultivators even fought because of a broken sword. After searching carefully and finding nothing, Su Zimo walked towards the side hall opposite. The side hall earlier on contained divine weapons and dermic treasures while this side hall originally contained many elixirs. The medicine cabinet in the side hall was already strewn on the ground with bottles and jars scattered on it. Many bottles were uncorked and the elixirs inside rolled out. Su Zimo picked up a random elixir and twisted it gently with his finger, turning it into ashes. After countless years, the medicinal effects and spirit chi within had long dissipated. Even if there were intact elixirs, they would be tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Consuming them would be no different from committing suicide. Su Zimo circled the side hall and was prepared to leave after discovering nothing. Just as he passed by a dilapidated ruin, the hell suppression tripod stirred. Chapter 1985 Bronze Lantern. Chapter 1985 Bronze Lantern. Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. This side hall was filled with elixirs. Why would the hell suppression tripod have such a reaction? The hell suppression tripod had always only devoured and refined spirit treasures and had never been interested in any elixirs. Furthermore, the elixirs here were tainted by the curse and had long lost their medicinal effects without any value. However, the commotion in his consciousness was extremely obvious and could not be an illusion. To be precise, the commotion was even greater than the hell suppression tripod encountering a spirit treasure. Su Zimo searched carefully under the ruins. Beneath his feet was a dusty ruin with a pile of useless items buried. All sorts of elixirs were mixed in the mud and it was almost impossible to tell them apart. Su Zimo bent down and searched carefully. Although the area was not big, there was a lot of debris. There was a shattered stone table, dilapidated counter, abandoned bronze lamp and many broken porcelain jars. After checking for a long time, Su Zimo did not find anything worthy of the hell suppression tripod's attention. He pondered for a moment and his gaze shifted to the ancient bronze lantern from before. The bronze lantern had a simple design and was extremely common. There was nothing exquisite about it and it was mostly buried in the mud. It should be an ordinary illumination object that was originally embedded in the walls of this side hall. Furthermore, the exposed part of the bronze lantern was covered in a layer of green spots. It was clearly corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Therefore, when Su Zimo first saw the bronze lantern, he did not take it to heart and swept his gaze across it. At that moment he arrived before the bronze lantern and bent down, wanting to pull it out of the mud. The moment his finger made contact with the bronze lantern, he shuddered and his consciousness blurred. Suddenly, a powerful and strange suction force burst forth from the bronze lantern. Su Zimo felt that the essence spirit in his consciousness was about to leave his body and enter the bronze lantern. Sensing danger, the creation lotus platform shone brightly and green rays of light burst forth from the 81 lotus holes, turning into thin threads that wrapped around Su Zimo's essence spirit and pinned it on the lotus platform. Even so, the suction force was extremely strong. Bang, bang, bang. After a momentary stalemate, the green threads on Su Zimo's essence spirit snapped. Even the creation lotus platform could not defend against that power. Suddenly, a loud Sanskrit sound echoed in Su Zimo's consciousness and the phantoms of Buddhas appeared, chanting Buddhist sutras loudly. The contents were from the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Sanskrit words appeared one after another around Su Zimo's essence spirit. They shone with a golden light and were dignified, mysterious and formed a barrier of Sanskrit. Was strange. After the phantoms of the Buddhas appeared and the Buddhist sutras sounded, the strange suction force gradually weakened and the attack was not as strong as before. However, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra was incomplete. After chanting for a while, the voices of the Buddhas stopped and the golden Sanskrit words around them faded rapidly. The suction force from the bronze lantern increased once more. Su Zimo's consciousness had already recovered a momentary clarity. He retracted his palm hurriedly and took half a step back with a shocked expression. What was that ancient bronze lantern that almost devoured his essence spirit? Even the creation lotus platform could not protect him. If not for the fact that he had cultivated half of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and attracted the phantoms of Buddhas to appear and chant sutras, he might have died for no reason. This thing could not even be touched. It was truly strange. Waving his sleeves, Su Zimo wiped away the mud around the bronze lantern and gradually revealed its true appearance. Su Zimo focused his gaze and frowned slightly as he looked at the lower half of the bronze lantern that was buried in the mud. The exposed part of the bronze lantern was filled with green spots. However, the buried part was a dark yellow color without any green spots. Everything in the emperor's tomb was corroded by the curse and the soil beneath his feet was not spared either. Logically speaking, even if the ancient bronze lantern was buried in the soil, it should have been corroded by the curse of the emperor's tomb. However, the situation of the bronze lantern was rather strange. Su Zimo stared at the green spots on the bronze lantern for a while and gradually noticed something unusual. If he was not wrong, the green spots on the bronze should not be caused by the curse of the emperor's tomb, but by rust. In other words, the bronze lantern had not been corroded by the curse after countless years in the emperor's tomb. In the emperor's tomb, even sentient dermic treasures could not defend against the corrosion of the curse. Up till now, only Su Zimo's hell suppression tripod would not be tainted by the curse. In other words, this bronze lantern was definitely better than a sentient dermic treasure. There was a high chance that it was a 9 tribulations pure yang spirit treasure or grotto heaven spirit treasure. At that thought, Su Zimo was secretly delighted. If that was truly the case, the fourth wall of the hell suppression tripod could be repaired after devouring and refining the bronze lantern. Su Zimo looked around and when he saw that there was no one else in the side hall, he took out the hell suppression tripod. The hell suppression tripod was in his consciousness and he did not dare to throw the bronze lantern into his consciousness. In fact, he did not even dare to use his spirit consciousness to move the ancient bronze lantern, afraid that the dangerous situation from before would repeat itself. Carefully, Su Zimo channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and covered his sleeves with a faint layer of golden Buddhist light. Thereafter, he waved his sleeves and swept up the bronze lantern on the ground, tossing it into the hell suppression tripod. With a thud, the ancient bronze lantern fell into the steaming molten iron within the tripod and vanished. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and was about to put away the hell suppression tripod when he heard a splash. The molten metal in the tripod surged and the ancient bronze lantern floated once more. Immediately after, the hell suppression tripod swayed continuously and molten iron rippled, tossing the bronze lantern out of the tripod and onto the ground. Su Zimo was stunned and dumbfounded. The hell suppression tripod had spat out the bronze lantern. The bronze lantern spun in the hell suppression tripod and underwent a baptism. However, it was still intact and seemed to have turned even more mysterious. The green spots on the bronze lantern had already been washed away by the molten metal in the tripod and returned to its original bronze color. Even the hell suppression tripod can't devour this thing. Su Zimo stared at the bronze lantern with a pensive gaze. This bronze lantern might be even more precious than he had imagined. After washing away the bronze green color, he saw a word vaguely etched on the lantern at the top. Su Zimo walked closer and took a closer look before murmuring softly, "Soul?" There was a soul character in the lantern. Furthermore, it was written in Sanskrit, so Su Zimo could not recognize it right away. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out a new storage bag and channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra as per his previous method. He swept the bronze lantern into his storage bag with his sleeves and kept it alone. He did not know the origin and use of that thing yet. However, something that even the hell suppression tripod could not devour was definitely extraordinary. Right then, a commotion broke out from the direction of the main hall. The formation had been dispelled. Chapter 1986, Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. Chapter 1986. Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. In a flash, Su Zimo sped towards the main hall. At the same time, cultivators from all over the palace noticed the commotion and surged towards the main hall. The crowd in front of the main hall was getting denser and there were already more than 10,000 people. All of them were excited and rubbed their palms together. When Su Zimo arrived, he saw Yun Ting standing at the front of the crowd with a deep gaze. Waving his hands continuously, his clothes fluttered in an extraordinary manner. In a short period of time, Yun Ting's fingertip emitted at least hundreds of spirit lights that entered the formation in front of the main hall instantly. The light of the formation suddenly burst forth in a bedazzling manner, engulfing Yun Ting instantly and causing a series of exclamations. Many cultivators thought that Yun Ting had failed and was devoured by the formation. But soon, everyone realized that Yun Ting's figure was motionless against the illumination of the formation and his aura became even sharper. "Open up!" Yun Ting hollered and pointed forward. Like a tide, the light of the formation was split into two from the middle and dissipated immediately. After a brief burst, all the light vanished. The formation at the entrance of the main hall was completely dispelled. As for Yun Ting, his face was only slightly pale and his aura did not weaken at all. He took out an elixir with a rich medicinal fragrance from his storage bag and swallowed it. Before long his face turned rosy. With a boom, the door to the main hall collapsed heavily, causing dust to fly everywhere. When they saw that, many cultivators were invigorated and their gazes burned. After a momentary daze, they wanted to barge into the main hall to check things out. Finally, someone is here. Suddenly, a sigh sounded from the entire palace, as though it came from the distant past and was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Against that sigh, everyone in the palace seemed to be frozen on the spot. It was the same for Yun Ting who was in midair and Su Zimo who was in the crowd. That power had completely exceeded everyone's imagination. Who was this person? How long had he been here for him to say something like that? This person was not dead after lingering in the Emperor's tomb? This palace was one of my palaces back then. The Jade Talisman is in the main hall. After a moment of silence, the voice sounded once more. Could the owner of that voice be the Immortal Emperor of the past? The Immortal Emperor was not dead. Many cultivators were shocked at the thought of that. Humph. Yun Ting had a calm expression and said in a deep voice, "It's just a remnant consciousness left behind by this Immortal Emperor in the formation. Once the formation is dispelled, the remnant consciousness will be released. It's not a brilliant method. It's rare for anyone among you to be able to dispel the formation I left behind. However, I wonder who will be able to obtain the Jade Talisman in the main hall." After saying a few words, the voice turned weak. It was as though the remnant consciousness did not have much power left after countless years. "Right, there's one more thing." The Immortal Emperor's voice sounded once more and became intermittent. "There's another treasure hidden in this palace that's much better than the Jade Talisman. I wonder who the fated person will be." Before he could finish, his voice vanished and so did the invisible power that bound the cultivators. "It's indeed the remnant consciousness of the Immortal Emperor." I didn't hear what he said at the end. "It seems like there's another treasure in this palace that's even more precious than the Jade Talisman." After the Immortal Emperor's remnant consciousness disappeared, the crowd exploded into discussions. At that moment, although Su Zimo was expressionless, his heart was beating wildly. There was a high chance that the treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor was the bronze lantern with the word "soul" etched on it. To be fair, the bronze lantern was truly difficult to notice. It was not in the side hall where the divine weapons and dermic treasures were stored. Instead, it was in the side hall where the elixirs were stored. Furthermore, it was just an ordinary illumination object that was embedded on the walls and filled with rust. Even if anyone noticed it, they would not take a second look. If not for the strange activity of the hell suppression tripod previously, Su Zimo would not have noticed the bronze lantern even if he searched the side hall a few more times. Of course, that was only Su Zimo's guess. The treasure that the Immortal Emperor mentioned might not be the bronze lantern. The first thing that caught the attention of many cultivators was the unknown treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor. However, everyone reacted quickly. Nobody knew what treasure the Immortal Emperor was referring to and it was a probability. However, the Jade Talisman was right in the main hall before them. Given the current situation, obtaining the Jade Talisman was more important. After a momentary silence, Yun Ting was the first to enter the main hall. Immediately after, many cultivators swarmed in and squeezed one another. Some of the cultivators were even pushed against the walls around the main hall, triggering the restrictions and dying on the spot. The stench of blood had already spread before the Jade Talisman was even seen. Summoning ethereal wings, Su Zimo flew above everyone's heads and entered the hall, looking over. The hall was dark with dust floating around. However, it was extremely spacious and it did not feel crowded at all for 10,000 cultivators to barge in. A palm-sized Jade Talisman hovered in midair at the front of the hall. It shone with a beautiful glow and the surrounding void was dyed red. Everyone caught sight of the Jade Talisman right away, but no one dared to act rashly. There were more than 10,000 grade 9 black immortals here, and anyone who dared to advance would become a public enemy. Even the brash Fang Xian retracted his sharpness after his short exchange with Tang Zi and Yun Ting and waited for an opportunity quietly. Su Zimo looked around and released his spirit consciousness, but he could not find any trace of Tang Zi. He knew that Tang Zi was definitely in the crowd. However, there were too many cultivators here and Tang Zi's concealment techniques were extremely brilliant. Even Su Zimo could not find her. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a strong hostility and glanced over. On the other side were experts of the 4 immortal sects, the bald monk, Iron Tower Man, middle-aged Taoist and the blue-dressed woman. The 4 of them could not suppress him even after joining forces earlier on. At that moment they already viewed Su Zimo as their greatest opponent. Fu. Right then, a chuckle sounded from the front of the crowd. Since no one dares to step forward, I won't stand on courtesy. There was a hint of mockery in Yun Ting's laughter as he looked down on everyone. Before leaving, he even turned around and looked at Su Zimo deeply with an indescribable expression. It was both a provocation and praise. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He did not know Yun Ting nor did he have any interactions with the latter. He did not know why the latter suddenly noticed him. Yun Ting flew through the air and advanced slowly towards the Jade Talisman. Although he was proud, he did not dare to be careless. Who knew if there were any other dangers in this hall? Yun Ting had barely taken a few steps when a strange sound echoed in the hall. Chapter 1987 Bean Soldiers. Chapter 1987, Bean Soldiers. The sound was like countless pearls falling onto a jade plate, tinkling. If it was anywhere else, the sound would be crisp and pleasant. However, it was a little terrifying in the abandoned hall of the Emperor's tomb. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that cobblestone-sized beans were rolling down the stone steps in front of the hall with yellow mists surging within. At a glance, the beans were densely packed and there were at least thousands of them rolling down the stone steps. What's this? There seems to be a ghost circling around these beans. Everyone was on guard. In midair, Yun Ting frowned slightly and his eyes flickered in deep thought. As the prince of an immortal kingdom, he possessed the bloodline of the royal family. Although he was young, he was experienced and knowledgeable. Could it be? Yun Ting murmured softly. Piak, piak. Before the beans could roll in front of the cultivators, they shattered. Immediately after, yellow fog surged from the beans and transformed into sinister figures in front of everyone. Some of them wore tattered robes and had skinny faces, wielding horsetails whips. Some of them lost an arm and walked over unsteadily with a saber in one hand. Although half of their faces were gone, they were still murderous. All of those figures had one thing in common. The holes in their eyes were bloodshot and emitted a strange red glow with a menacing aura. It's otherworldly soldiers. They're otherworldly soldiers. No wonder we didn't see any otherworldly soldiers blocking the way. To think that they were all trapped within this hall. Why are these otherworldly soldiers coming out of the beans? Cries of surprises came from the crowd. Thousands of otherworldly soldiers appeared in the hall and blocked everyone's path with a rumbling malevolent aura. It was truly shocking. Fu. In midair, Yun Ting's expression was calm, as though he had already guessed the scene before him. He chuckled. To think that I would be able to witness this divine power of turning beans into soldiers in this palace. That statement caused an uproar. Turning beans into soldiers was a supreme divine power. The cultivation realms of the cultivators present were not high and most of them were from the lower worlds. They had never seen it before. At most, they would only hear some legends. Some exalted immortals could summon heavenly soldiers with a handful of beans in the blink of an eye and form a mighty army that was invincible. Now that many cultivators witnessed it personally, They truly realized that the soldiers that were summoned were not heavenly soldiers, but otherworldly soldiers. Kill! 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 Thousands of otherworldly soldiers roared and charged towards the cultivators with bloodshot eyes. Yun Ting was fearless as he chuckled. This must be your final test, right? Those evil things can stop others but not me. I will definitely get my hands on the Jade Talisman. The moment he said that, Yun Ting charged towards the otherworldly soldiers at the front. Before both parties made contact, Yun Ting closed two fingers and waved forward gently. Shing! A blazing light burst forth from Yun Ting's sword finger. It was extremely sharp and tore a huge hole in the otherworldly soldiers. The otherworldly soldiers at the front were sliced into two from the middle by the sword beam. That sword chi was even sharper than a true sword's edge. Yun Ting moved and entered alone. Your Highness, watch out. Many cultivators of the Zhexian Immortal Kingdom shouted and charged forward. However, there was an endless stream of otherworldly soldiers and Yun Ting's figure was drowned before long. The hole was repaired and Yun Ting was isolated from the other cultivators. The cultivators standing at the outer perimeter could only see sword chi surging within the otherworldly soldiers. Everywhere it passed, people were overturned and broken limbs flew everywhere. Old Man Gu of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom and Fang Xian led everyone behind them and charged forward. The cultivators of the four immortal sects swarmed forward as well. The other cultivators moved one after another and charged towards the otherworldly soldiers. The first person to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers would gain the initiative and have the best chance of obtaining the Jade Talisman. Although the otherworldly soldiers had torrential malevolent auras, their cultivation realms were limited and almost all of them were black immortals. In fact, there were even many low-level black immortals who were not much of a threat to everyone. Furthermore, these otherworldly soldiers had obvious flaws. Without an essence spirit, one could not use any divine powers or secret skills. What they relied on was their battered bodies. Su Zimo did not attack right away. Instead, he chose to watch coldly from the sidelines. It would be way too simple if the final test left behind by the Immortal Emperor was truly to turn beings into soldiers. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he caught a faint sound amidst the chaotic shouts in the hall. It was the sound of beans bouncing. Frowning slightly, Su Zimo leaped up and looked down from above. At the end of the hall, there were still many sparkling beans jumping and rolling down the stone steps. Thereafter, they split apart and transformed into otherworldly soldiers. In fact, some of the beans even transformed into gigantic birds, beasts and various strange living beings. Not only did the number of otherworldly soldiers not decrease after the charge, it was even increasing at a terrifying speed. There were endless beans at the end of the hall. If this continued, the number of otherworldly soldiers that would be born would not be tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands or even millions. What was even more frightening was that Su Zimo could clearly sense that the otherworldly soldiers that evolved later on were clearly stronger than before. Their bodies were more complete and their auras were terrifying. He could already see Earth Essence Realm otherworldly soldiers evolving from the beings. At this rate, there might even be grade 6 or 9 Earth Immortal or even Heaven Immortal level otherworldly soldiers later on. Even if the otherworldly soldiers did not have essence spirits and could not release their divine powers and immortal arts, the strength of their bodies as Earth and Heaven Immortals was enough to kill everyone. It was impossible to kill all the otherworldly soldiers. Furthermore, they had to fight for the Jade Talisman against the endless otherworldly soldiers. There must be a way to dispel this. Since that senior Immortal Emperor left that treasure behind to await a fated person, there was no way he would sever all paths forward. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and focused. At the end of the hall, the Jade Talisman hovered in midair and shone brightly. Light scattered and formed an empty space in the hall. Although the beans rolled down the stone steps, they circled around the area as though they were sentient. Su Zimo already had a plan. I have to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers as soon as possible and reach the area enveloped by the Jade Talisman. I must not get entangled with these otherworldly soldiers. At that thought, Su Zimo scanned the battlefield to search for Tang Zi. Although Tang Zi was good at concealment techniques, she could not hide her tracks against the dense otherworldly soldiers and was fighting on the battlefield, advancing slowly. There's an endless number of otherworldly soldiers here and those at the back are getting stronger. Don't linger in battle and charge over as soon as possible. Traveling through the air is less of a hindrance. Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Chapter 1988 Threat. Chapter 1988 Threat. Tang Zi knew the Void Thunder Manual and might have some connection to the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor had been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. Tang Zi was young and naturally could not be the Thunder Emperor's successor. However, she could be the disciple of the Thunder Emperor's successor. It was because of this relationship that Su Zimo could not watch Tang Zi be trapped to death by the otherworldly soldiers. Tang Zi was extremely smart as well. After fighting against the otherworldly soldiers for a while, she felt that something was amiss. Just as she was hesitating whether to advance or retreat, Su Zimo's voice sounded. Without hesitation, she leaped into midair and sped forward. As an assassin, she had always been alone and had no friends since she was young. Her parents died early and she trusted no one other than her master. However, for some reason she felt an indescribable sense of trust after knowing Su Zimo for a short period of time. It was like a sixth sense. This person would not harm her. Therefore, she did not hesitate at all after hearing Su Zimo's voice transmission. Indeed, the resistance in the air was much less significant. Furthermore, from her vantage point, Tang Zi noticed the terrifying scene at the end of the hall as well. Dense beings rolled down and transformed into figures with terrifying auras with torrential malevolent auras. If she had continued to be entangled with the otherworldly soldiers below, it would be extremely difficult for her to leave the hall, let alone charge over. Charge to the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. Su Zimo's voice sounded once more. Tang Zi focused her gaze and saw that the area was indeed extremely strange. Be it the beings at the beginning or the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured, they seemed to be wary and avoided that area. Let's go. In that short period of time, Su Zimo arrived beside Tang Zi and extended his palm. Tang Zi knew that Su Zimo's movement technique was powerful and he wanted to charge over with her. However, at that moment, Tang Zi felt a sense of fluster when she saw Su Zimo's outstretched palm. She lowered her head slightly and avoided his gaze instinctively. Before long, Tang Zi calmed down and raised her head expressionlessly. Given my capabilities, I can reach there myself. Yun Ting and the others have already noticed something unusual. Don't let them beat you to it. At that moment, Yun Ting, who was at the front of the otherworldly soldiers, arrived in midair as well. With a single glance, he discovered how terrifying the bean soldiers were. At the same time, Fang Xian of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, the few experts of the 4 immortal sects and some paragons of the other sects and factions arrived in midair. All of them were peak experts of the Black Immortal realm and noticed something amiss almost immediately when they encountered such danger. Black Immortals expended a lot of essence chi flying in the air, let alone fighting in midair. Therefore, most of the cultivators fought against the otherworldly soldiers on the ground. However, paragons and monster incarnates like Yun Ting did not have any reservations. They released their divine powers and flew through the air towards the Jade Talisman. Yun Ting seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword as he charged at the front at the fastest speed. Old Man Gu of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom and Fang Xian lagged behind slightly. After that were the experts of the 4 immortal sections. Tang Zi reached out and pushed Su Zimo gently, urging, "Hurry and leave. Don't worry about me." She knew that Su Zimo would definitely slow down and fall behind if he carried her. At that time, even if the two of them could rush over, they might not get anything. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before nodding. "Be careful." The moment he said that, a pair of gigantic golden wings appeared behind Su Zimo. Beneath the golden wings was a pair of almost transparent and relatively small wings. The rock and ethereal wings burst forth at the same time. Swoosh! Su Zimo transformed into a golden streak of light and charged forward at lightning speed. Right then, Yun Ting and the others at the front encountered some trouble as well. Towards the end, the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured became increasingly terrifying and powerful. The initial otherworldly soldiers had almost no ability to fly. But now, there were already some otherworldly soldiers and ferocious birds blocking in midair with a murderous intent. Yun Ting and the others had no choice but to stop and fight against the otherworldly soldiers. Naturally, their speed slowed down. As for Su Zimo, he relied on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, and even if there were otherworldly soldiers obstructing the way, he could pass through them rapidly. Most of the time, the otherworldly soldiers could not react in time and would only realize it later. The bald monk from one of the 4 immortal sects was swinging his golden fist and fighting against an otherworldly soldier. Suddenly, A sharp gust of wind sounded in his ears. Immediately after, he caught sight of a golden light flash past him from the corner of his eye. "What's that?" The bald monk was shocked. "It's Su Zimo from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom." The middle-aged Taoist recognized it. Back then he had a deep impression of Su Zimo crossing the lake with this movement technique. "He's surpassed me." The Iron Tower man roared and charged forward, pushing away the otherworldly soldiers in his way as he chased after Su Zimo in huge strides. On the other side, Old Man Gu and Fang Xian fought the entire way and followed behind Yun Ting. Flying through the air was draining to begin with, let alone fighting. Old Man Gu was already in his twilight years. Although his essence spirit was strong, his spirit consciousness attacks were useless against the otherworldly soldiers. He was already exhausted from the battle and panted heavily. Initially he could still follow closely behind Yun Ting when he joined forces with Fang Xian. But now, Old Man Ji's blood qi was weak and his combat strength was greatly reduced. Fang Xian even had to take care of him most of the time. Old Man Gu had become Fang Xian's burden. Old Man Gu turned back and saw that the others from the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom were completely surrounded by the otherworldly soldiers. At that moment they no longer had the chance to retreat even if they wanted to. A series of tragic cries sounded from the battlefield, causing one's scalp to tingle. He witnessed a cultivator being torn into two by otherworldly soldiers. Old Man Ji's face turned paler. "Fang Xian, you can't abandon me." As though he recalled something, Old Man Gu turned around hurriedly and threatened in a low voice, "I'm the only one who can take you out of the Emperor's tomb. If you dare to abandon me and snatch the Jade Talisman alone, I'll send a message back immediately. At that time, even if you manage to return alive, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground." Fang Xian said as he defended against the otherworldly soldiers. "Exalted Immortal, you're thinking too much. I am even hoping that you can put in a good word for me in front of your highness. How can I be disloyal?" "It's good that you know." Old Man Gu harumphed. Right then, Fang Xian's expression changed as he noticed Su Zimo catching up behind them. "Exalted Immortal, we have to stop this person and not let him surpass us." Fang Xian hollered and charged forward right away. Chapter 1989 Killing with a Borrowed Knife. Chapter 1989 Killing with a Borrowed Knife. There was nothing wrong with stopping Su Zimo. However, Old Man Gu felt that something was amiss. Only, the situation was dangerous and tense on the chaotic battlefield and he did not have the energy to think about it carefully. Furthermore, Fang Xian had already charged forward first and Old Man Gu could only follow. In midair, relying on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, Su Zimo shuttled through the obstruction of many otherworldly soldiers without slowing down at all as he approached Yun Ting, who was at the front. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the side and threw a punch with an extremely ferocious aura. The surrounding air turned scorching hot from the friction of that punch. That punch did not have any additional movements. It was a simple straight punch, but it sealed all of Su Zimo's advancement paths. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he ignored the punch. Instead of showing any signs of weakness, he charged forward viciously. Boom. The two collided with a deafening bang. Su Zimo's figure appeared and paused in midair. An expert. Furthermore, it was a top-tier expert. Right now, the Green Lotus true body had already grown to the peak of grade 9 and could take on connate black-grade dermic treasures without using his blood qi. Apart from his shocking physique, the fact that he could be blocked after releasing the extreme speed divine power and ethereal wings required extremely sharp eyes. Even the paragons of the four immortal sects he had fought previously did not have such methods. Su Zimo glanced sideways and saw a black-robed man standing in midair not far away. It was the person who fought against Tang Zi previously. Fang Xian shuddered as well and took half a step back with a dark expression, placing a hand behind his back. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds, he cultivated a mysterious cultivation technique, the divine elephant breathing technique, and was invincible. Every single time he attacked, he possessed the power of a divine elephant and could destroy the world and crush stars. If this cultivation technique was cultivated to its limits, it could even obtain the power of thousands of divine elephants and be invincible on land, suppressing all living beings. The fact that he could survive the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascend with an indestructible body was proof of how strong he was. Even after ascending to the upper world, none of the cultivators of the same cultivation realm were his match in melee combat or physical combat, let alone in the lower worlds. During his clash with Su Zimo earlier on, neither of them used blood chi, it was a pure physical fight. However, he was disadvantaged. The palm behind his back trembled slightly and felt a sharp pain. He had to circulate his blood chi secretly to resolve the pain and heal the hidden injuries on his palm. Fang Xian thought for a moment and realized that he might not be a match for Su Zimo even if he used his blood chi. Even if he could gain the upper hand with his bloodline phenomenon, it would be difficult for him to suppress Su Zimo within a short period of time. Furthermore, his bloodline phenomenon was one of his greatest trump cards and he must not use it unless he had no other choice. His trump card was prepared for Yun Ting. At that thought, Fang Xian arrived beside Su Zimo in a flash. This person's physique is very strong. I'll fight him head-on while you attack from behind. On the other side, Old Man Gu had just arrived when he heard Fang Xian's voice transmission. Before he could think further, Fang Xian had already attacked. Boom, boom. Fang Xian channeled his blood chi and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Tsunami blood. Filled with blood chi, Fang Xian's body expanded rapidly and rose continuously. In the blink of an eye, he grew into a small giant that was 30 feet tall. Boom, boom, boom. Fang Xian swayed his massive body and let out a loud bang with every step he took in midair. Filled with a savage aura, he charged over like a divine elephant. The charge of a divine elephant was the most terrifying. On land, no living being could stop him. Su Zimo looked at Fang Xian who was charging over fearlessly with a burning gaze. His feet stomped on the ground and his knees pushed forward. His entire body was stretched like a sprinting horse. That was a killing move from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Worried that his green lotus true body's bloodline would be exposed, Su Zimo did not use his blood chi. Even so, the aura of that move was not weak at all. Exalted Immortal, now's the time. Fang Xian sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and growled. Without hesitation, Old Man Gu walked forward instinctively and conjured a dermic seal with both hands, smashing it towards Su Zimo's back. Just as Fang Xian and Su Zimo were about to collide, a sinister glint flashed through Fang Xian's eyes as he suddenly dispersed his blood chi and stopped in his tracks. Fang Xian's body withered rapidly like deflated skin and returned to normal. He did not choose to fight Su Zimo head-on. Instead, he suddenly stopped and retreated. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Right then, Old Man Ji's attack descended. Su Zimo harumphed coldly. Without even thinking or turning back, his entire arm suddenly went limp like a divine elephant's trunk and flung backwards. The change was extremely sudden without any warning. Initially, Fang Xian and Old Man Gu were the ones who joined forces to stop Su Zimo. With Fang Xian's sudden retreat, Old Man Gu was the only one left facing Su Zimo. Old Man Gu wanted to dodge and retreat but it was too late. His eyes widened as he looked at the departing Fang Xian. Initially, his eyes were filled with surprise, doubt and confusion. In the end, everything was taken over by rage. You. Old Man Gu merely said a single word before the dermic seal he conjured with both hands was shattered by Su Zimo's arm. Immediately after, the arm whipped Old Man Ji's head and shattered it. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Although Old Man Ji's essence spirit was also at the Earth Essence realm, he did not have the chance to release an essence spirit secret skill. There were many cultivators present, but there were less than 2 who could withstand Su Zimo's move. Su Zimo frowned and quickly understood that he had been used as a weapon. However, that did not affect him much. It did not matter if he killed an exalted immortal of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. However, the sinister nature of Fang Xian made him wary. This person was troublesome to deal with. Hee, thank you. Arriving beside Old Man Gu, Fang Xian removed his storage bag and put it away. He smiled sinisterly at Su Zimo and continued charging forward. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds who had ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he was prideful and would not bow down to others so easily. Furthermore, Old Man Gu was only a servant of the prince. Deep in his bones, the old man had a condescending attitude and had never taken Fang Xian seriously. Although Fang Xian was respectful on the surface, he was already displeased internally. However, no matter how bold he was, unlike Su Zimo, he would not dare to kill an exalted immortal in front of everyone. That was the reason for the scene earlier on. To him, this old man was already a burden and was useless. Abandoning him, Fang Xian relaxed and chased after Yun Ting. Chapter 1990 Void Cruising Sword. Chapter 1990 Void Cruising Sword. From Fang Xian's scheming earlier on, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a cunning old fox. Not only did he plot against old man Gu, he even made Su Zimo his weapon. While getting rid of his problem, he cleanly avoided any implication. Even if he returned to the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, he would not be punished. After a slight delay, Su Zimo flapped his wings and continued speeding in the direction of the Jade Talisman. At that moment, more and more beings shattered and transformed into powerful living beings. Towards the end, almost all of them were grade 9 black immortals or even earth immortal otherworldly soldiers. A massive sea beast floated over and opened its mouth, almost devouring the entire hall. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and transformed into a golden streak of light, charging over. Gulp. The sea beast devoured Su Zimo in huge mouthfuls. Su Zimo did not stop in his tracks. Instead, he charged even more ferociously, wanting to penetrate the massive body of the sea beast. At that moment, Yun Ting was far ahead of everyone else. Su Zimo did not have much time to waste on this sea beast. Poof, poof, poof. A series of sounds came from the stomach of the sea beast. A golden light shot in from the head of the sea beast, penetrating its chest and organs. Towards the end of his charge, Su Zimo's strength was also lacking. Thankfully, he was within the body of the sea beast and was hidden by its gigantic skeleton. Su Zimo channeled his blood chi without worrying about being discovered and exposing the secret of the Green Lotus true body. Boom. Channeling his blood chi, Su Zimo released an extremely terrifying power once more and passed through the sea beast like lightning. Su Zimo overtook Fang Xian again and chased after Yun Ting, who was at the front. Fang Xian cursed internally. However, there was nothing he could do when he saw that. Under the divine power of turning beings into soldiers, the true paragons and monster incarnates among the cultivators had already stood out. At that moment, the paragons were roughly divided into groups. Right at the front was Prince Yun Ting of the Zishan Immortal Kingdom. His body was strong and every single punch and kick carried an extremely sharp edge. There were almost no otherworldly soldiers that could stand in his way. Of course, as the otherworldly soldiers grew stronger, his speed slowed down as well. Second was Su Zimo. Su Zimo's method was even more violent and ferocious. He charged forward without decreasing his speed and the distance between him and Yun Ting decreased. Third was Fang Xian and Tang Zi. Both of them had different methods and displayed different divine powers. Fang Xian's strength was tough and ferocious while Tang Zi's movement technique was illusory and unpredictable. Fang Xian's position was slightly ahead while Tang Zi was slightly behind. The paragons of the four immortal sects were in the fourth group. Although the four of them were behind Su Zimo, Yun Ting and the others, the difference was not that great. They were almost right on Tang Zi's heels. At the back were some of the best cultivators. There weren't many of them, only dozens of them. They were scattered and fought individually. Although those people were also in midair, it was already extremely fortunate if they could escape alive, let alone break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers. The consumption of essence chi was already extremely terrifying just by flying in midair, let alone fighting against otherworldly soldiers in midair. Unless they were absolute top-tier monster incarnates, there was no way they could make it through. There were many cultivators who entered the Emperor's tomb, but only a few truly stood out. Some sharp cultivators had already begun to retreat, prepared to escape from the hall when they saw that the situation was bad. However, there were countless otherworldly soldiers and it was almost impossible for them to escape. Yun Ting was getting closer and closer to the Jade Talisman. He was less than 200 feet away. As long as he crossed those 200 feet, he would be able to reach the light of the Jade Talisman. That distance was merely a few breaths for him. The Jade Talisman was within reach. Finally, a smile curled on Yun Ting's lips. He turned around without stopping in his tracks. Glancing at Su Zimo behind him, he raised a finger smugly and waved it gently in front of him. Su Zimo was smart and understood what that action meant instantly. Yun Ting was saying, "I'm the number one, you can't beat me." Su Zimo's expression was calm and he maintained his speed. However, a mocking look flashed through his eyes. At the same time, Yun-Ting suddenly heard a screeching sound, as though a sharp weapon was piercing over and arrived instantly. Yun-Ting was alarmed. Before the attack truly descended, he felt a sharp pain on his back. This meant that the person who attacked was far stronger than him. Without hesitation, Yun-Ting's figure swayed and suddenly turned blurry. His figure faded as though he had escaped into the unknown void and was no longer in this world. Void Cruising Sword. Even in the entire upper world, that movement secret skill was one of the top movement techniques and had already touched on the Daoan technique of space. Unless it was extremely dangerous, Yun-Ting would not release Void Cruising Sword. Chi. A sharp bone spear missed. Yun-Ting turned around and could not help but frown when he saw who attacked. If those they encountered previously could be called otherworldly soldiers, this person before them could definitely be called an otherworldly general. The person had no head and rode on a crane. Wielding a bone spear, he was shrouded by a rich malevolent aura that was almost corporeal. This otherworldly general was already at the level 7 Earth Essence realm. This could already be considered as a high-level Earth Immortal. Although this otherworldly general did not have an essence spirit and could not release divine powers and secret skills, the power he displayed earlier on was enough to kill Yun-Ting. Even with Yun-Ting's pride, he had to deal with it wholeheartedly and did not dare to be careless. This was the final obstruction. As long as he could break through the obstruction of the otherworldly general, he would be able to reach the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. With that delay, Su Zimo had already caught up. From the corner of his eye, Yun-Ting saw that in front of Su Zimo, there were also high-level Earth Immortal otherworldly generals. Furthermore, there were 2 of them and they blocked him in a triangular manner. Yun-Ting heaved a sigh of relief. There was no way Su Zimo could charge over in a short period of time with such terrifying otherworldly generals blocking him. But soon Yun-Ting realized that something was amiss. Although there were 2 terrifying otherworldly generals blocking the way ahead, Su Zimo's speed did not show any signs of decreasing and was extremely fast. This is bad. It's that movement technique. Although Yun-Ting did not witness it personally, he heard some cultivators mention it earlier on. According to those cultivators, Su Zimo relied on a strange movement technique that was almost like teleportation to cross the lake and pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Indeed. Just as Su Zimo was about to collide with the swords of the 2 otherworldly generals, his figure suddenly flashed. When he reappeared, Su Zimo had already left the 2 otherworldly generals behind. True Dragon 9 flashes. The path ahead was smooth without any obstacles. Su Zimo turned around and looked at Yun-Ting, who was not far away, with a fake smile. Similarly, he extended a finger and waved it in front of him. You. Yun-Ting was enraged. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never suffered such provocation and humiliation. Haha. Su Zimo burst into laughter and turned to leave. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.